Hey guys, what's going on? This is Colin's Process. Thanks for tuning in. Another week, another episode. Today, I had a conversation with. I'm prepping myself right now because I got to say this name and I got to say it properly. This guy's name is Daniel Kazandjian. Kazandjian. I think that's how you say it. Daniel is a personal philosopher. He has a website called My Personal Socrates, I believe, and you can sit down with him and he can, from a philosophical standpoint, help you work through certain issues that you're having in life. Really, really interesting stuff. The way we met is I was doing Uber, and he got in the car, and I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to, I can't even think of what Impact Theory. There you go. Tom Bilyeu. And I was listening to that, and he was like, is this Impact Theory? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I was just listening to this episode, like, just today. And we just started connecting, and I was talking about how I wanted to start talking to neuroscientists and people in philosophy and people in behavioral science, and just wanted to get really down into why people want more, like what makes a person want more and what makes other people, just content with being, quote unquote lazy or, underachievers. And he was like, wow. He's like, I think there was a reason that we met. He's like, I actually work at a place and we use behavioral science to help companies. I think how do they help companies? I forget. But they help companies through behavioral science, which is like the principles of it. I'm completely butchering it right now, but yeah, he's like, I work with a bunch of behavioral scientists. He's like, I work with people that are like right up your alley. He's like, and I'm like one of those people. And I was like, holy shit. And he was like, yeah. And we ended up connecting. We met up at a coffee house. We had a long conversation, like 2 hours, just getting to know each other and talking about all sorts of different things. And then I was like, yeah, let's do a podcast. He already had one scheduled. He went and dealt with that. And then that was it. We got together. He was good enough to come all the way to me. I picked him up downtown Toronto. We came all the way back to Thornhill. We sat down. We talked for about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And then he left. And I took him back. I wouldn't just leave him out like that. But it was a great conversation. We went really deep. This is like a denser one into philosophy and psychology, but also we touch on David Goggins. It's a real twister. We go in a lot of different places, but we stay in the vein of like success and like wanting more. So yeah, definitely check this one out. It's absolutely amazing. Let me try and say this name again. You are now listening to my interview with Daniel Kazandjian. Daniel Kazandjian, the personal philosopher. You are now listening to The Process with Colin Cummings. That's my intro song right now. You like that? That's it. That's all I got. I always say the podcast that's about habits, behaviors, and mindset, but I have a feeling it's going to change as I change. So I'll say that for this episode because that's what we're going to get into, but who knows where it's going to be in like 2 years or something.
Well, the only constant is change, brother. So.
Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, man. So we had our own podcast basically already.
Yeah.
We basically just did an hour-long podcast as we were talking. What do you want to start with? You know what? I'll start with the questions. And my questions for you were longer-winded than any usual person, just because I know you can keep up intellectually. I know I'm gonna have to keep up intellectually, so I was like, my questions are a little longer-winded. But I guess we'll start with who are you and what do you do? And you can answer that any way you feel.
Yeah. I feel like in a way that's the toughest question.
Yeah.
That's something I'm still trying to discover. But my, let's say, cocktail party answer is that I work for a behavioral sciences consulting firm where we use behavioral economics in order to help Fortune 500 companies solve business challenges. And so I work on the business side there. And my role is something like intrapreneurship. So, you know, taking our intellectual property and trying to come up with new revenue streams. Okay. That's my day job.
Yeah.
But something that I think is more representative of who I am is it's a passion project that I've been involved in about a year and a half called Personal Socrates, where I use philosophy to help people organize their thinking.
Yeah.
So we can talk a little bit about that. And I'm sure we'll get into that some more, but just for now, I'll say I got into this about a year and a half ago with the help of this PhD philosopher in the US who was using essentially the Socratic method of challenging people through questioning to help professionals, artists, people around the world go from a place of confusion to clarity. And he trained me in this approach, and I've always had really strong philosophical leanings. And then I started to do it myself, and he started to send some of his clients to me. So I Skype with people, and we get into these really intense dialogues, and we take like a problem, a decision, or something like that, and through Socratic questioning, we get to some place of clarity.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, because like I know about Personal Socrates. I was actually on that website for a while. I was actually up till like 3 a.m. on that website yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, because it was really interesting. Because that's exactly what I like the most. Like I like getting clear on things. I like philosophy a lot. And then when I read the whole bio of it, I was like, what is this? I'm like, this is so, because I want to get into coaching myself, and it's such a weird realm of, you're basically coaching through philosophy, which I think is so different. It's like a lot of white space there. I don't think a lot of people are doing that.
Well, I like to draw a distinction between coaching and with what I do.
Yeah.
And it's something that also I'm learning, and my approach has been changing over time, but essentially I avoid giving people advice. Because I think in most situations I feel unqualified to give people advice.
Okay.
And so my tools, my primary tools, I'd say at least 80% of it is asking questions.
Yeah.
And active listening.
Okay.
So creating a space where individuals feel like they can speak honestly, and there's somebody there who's really focusing on what they're saying, and then asking questions at the perfect time, asking the appropriately challenging questions, or holding somebody to a question when they're rushing to move on to something else. Like that's more of the approach, as opposed to saying, well, have you considered doing this or that? Because I think as soon as I start doing that, I'm getting into slightly dangerous territory. I'm presuming that I understand someone's situation, when most of the time it's much more complicated than either of us think.
Yeah, and you're probably like contaminating the situation with like your own perception,
projections.
Yeah. That's really cool. I actually do that with one of my friends. I do that quite a bit, because anytime I'll ask him about something emotional, he'll bring up like his website or like a course he's like doing, and I'll be like, that's not what we're talking about. Like, why are you bringing that up?
Right.
It's weird. That's really cool. I want you to do that to me. You gotta do that to me.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely. That's so cool. So yeah, I actually did have a question about that. I wanted to know like how that started and like what got you into that. That was actually basically my question. So you answered that pretty well, man. And what, you've been doing it for a year and a half, you said? That's pretty cool. And you're having, I was going to actually ask, who are you doing it in person, but you said you're doing it in Skype. Is there anybody in Toronto that you do it with at all, or no?
No. So it's funny because the people that I would do it with, so if we're thinking about this from a business perspective, the leads that I would then hope to convert into clients, which by the way doesn't feel right because this really feels like a passion project. It really feels like at this point it's an art as opposed to my business.
Yeah.
But let's just take that frame for a second. The leads that I would then convert into clients, end up becoming my friends, because
Okay.
it takes a particular person to be immediately interested in this,
Definitely.
and who's immediately sold on it. And they're also people I really like, and so we end up talking, and
Yeah.
so I have a lot of these conversations with people in Toronto, but informally, and
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. True. Man, that's it's so interesting to think of that. I'd love to. I should ask people if they're willing to like record it, because that
Yeah.
would be very beneficial to a lot of people who aren't willing to open up to somebody that way and be challenged. Because it sounds like you're challenging them. Like you'll be talking to them and you're challenging what they're saying.
Yeah. So I try to gauge how willing somebody is to experience that kind of like almost antagonistic form of dialogue.
Yeah.
Some people really want it. So I at one point I had a form on the website that would ask people like essentially what they're looking for, and there was some sort of multiple choice question
Okay.
that said, do you want somebody like primarily to hold space and listen, or do you want someone to play devil's advocate? And there was a couple other options.
Okay.
And some people like, no, I really want a devil's advocate. And
Okay.
that's actually what has, like, I've had similar relationships. So I had this relationship with this philosopher, and that's what drew me to him. I really wanted somebody to call me out on my bullshit, somebody to challenge my assumptions.
Really?
So definitely a huge subset of people are looking for that because, you know, they're not receiving enough of that feedback in their life. But some people, they're not looking for the devil's advocate. They're looking for, I guess, a compassionate listener, or somebody who could potentially be more of a coach. And some of those conversations don't persist. Like we'll only have a few, and then we won't have a relationship. So
Yeah. You won't have a relationship. Like, get out of here.
yeah,
Not willing to go deep. You got to be willing to go deep, right? Like,
yeah.
But you just said something. You just said that you know a philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet a philosopher? I've always wanted to meet a philosopher. How did you do that? And where do you find a philosopher?
It's kind of a crazy story. I got lucky. We'll start with that. So,
Okay.
this answer is going to start to raise some more questions, but this is the truthful answer.
Okay.
I met him because I actually met him through Jordan Peterson.
Oh, okay.
So Jordan Peterson used to be my clinical psychologist a few years ago.
Yeah.
And at some point in our relationship, he felt compelled to introduce me to one of his other clients. He said, "You guys should meet. I have never done this before. I'm going to clear it with the other client.
Yeah.
If that's something you're willing to do, I think the two of you should really meet." And
Wow.
that individual eventually became my best friend.
Wow.
So that guy was talking to this philosopher in the US because he's super interested in, you know, all these different modalities of coaching and challenging his thinking. So I don't know how he found him, but then this friend of mine introduced me to this philosopher in the US, and
Wow.
that's how I got into it. And then he became my mentor, and like he's like a brother to me now. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
Jordan Peterson. Look
Yeah.
at him.
So
changing
I
lives.
attribute it to Jordan Peterson. He was kind of like the first link
Wow.
in that chain.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And what he was probably doing, he probably like listened to both of you talk and like what you're about and like what you're willing to talk about and be challenged on and like your struggles and stuff. And he was like, these two are going to pair up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Thank God for Jordan Peterson.
I know. Where would we be without him?
Man, we'd be still listening to like Tony Robbins and stuff. That's what it would be. There'll be a lot more people listening to Tony.
Yeah.
That's nuts, man. That's actually not part of the questioning, but let's touch on that. I already know about you told me about your whole thing with Jordan Peterson, but like I guess like do you want to touch on that quickly, because that is the question that's going to be raised to anybody who's listening. They're going to be like, what did you just say?
So it's that I mean, I don't really know where to start with it. A number of years ago, a friend of so I used to do clinical research at Sick Kids. I was a summer student there, and I met an individual there who also became one of my best friends, who was one of Jordan Peterson's students at U of T. So this was many years ago, And he said, I think you'd really like this guy's lectures. And we were into psychology and all this stuff, and Carl Jung. And so we started listening to some of these lectures, and I just kept like going down that rabbit hole. And he didn't have as much content online back then, but he had these wonderful TVO lectures from, I think, the 90s or the early 2000s or something. And they were on mythology.
Okay.
And at the time, I was a lapsed Christian, as I grew up in a Christian family, and I was trying to reconcile some of the genuine meaning and beauty and let's say transcendence that I experienced as a sincere Christian when I was younger, with this more materialistic, scientific, naturalistic perspective that I had now been trained in and was developing.
Yeah.
And so I was in this, existential valley, and Peterson pops up out of nowhere as this bridge. He's a hyper intellectual scientific thinker who also has this deep reverence for mythology and religion, and he was making the most sense that I've ever heard on the topic. And I was also getting really deep into philosophy at the time, reading existentialists and whatnot. And Peterson was like this interesting character who his lectures were touching on all the different books that I happened to be reading.
Oh yeah.
So in retrospect, I'd use the word synchronicity to describe that. There's just something profoundly coincidental about his content. So I got his book, I read Maps of Meaning, and I had always been more on, let's say, the depressive side of the spectrum, as it was, like even without the existential angst. And so I had the intention to one day seek help for that. And I thought, I need to talk to this guy, because, partly because I want to meet him and I want to actually have dialogue with him, but also I think I should just see a psychologist to make sure that, I'm doing what I can to deal with my mental health.
How old were you when you were doing this?
I was 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. I was pretty deep in the weeds at a very young age with this stuff. And I think actually the lapsed faith had a lot to do with it, because when I was a Christian as like an early teenager, I was very sincere as a Christian. I was reading the Bible. I was looking at, different sermons. Like I really got into it. And I think it actually developed the foundation for what later turned into philosophy for me.
Huh.
So that was always, a part of my life. Previously it was a religious experience, and then it turned into more of an intellectual one. So yeah, I basically was like, how do I get in contact with this guy? And I found his email online, and I emailed him and I said, hey, I've like read your stuff.
Yeah.
You've had a big impact on me already, but I'm wondering, do you still have a clinical practice? I'd love to see you. And he didn't reply. And 2 weeks later, I was like, I'm not just going to take that. And so I literally just forwarded the email back to him and said, hey, I don't know if you saw this. And then he immediately replied and said, when are you available? And so we set things up, and then next thing you know, I met him.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's so nuts.
And I have to say, he was tremendously influential at that period of my life.
For sure.
Like really helped with a lot of the chaos in my thinking. And I owe a lot to him. I think he's been a profound mentor for me. So
yeah.
And
that is the perfect age for that type of thinking and deconstructing of ideas and everything like that. Like right now, I feel like he's touching on a lot of guys who are like maybe 28 to like 30 some odd years, and I would hope that like a lot of younger people would get into him, like when they're like 19, 20, because like that would really be beneficial to anybody.
Yeah,
it's been so beneficial to me. It's only been like 3 years for me since I've discovered Jordan Peterson, so it's like maybe not even. Yeah, no, it's been 3 years, because the first year I didn't care. Somebody played something of it, and I'm like, oh, this is a teacher, isn't it? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to hear this. And then I came around slowly as like people started making YouTube videos on him, like compilations and stuff. That's when I started getting into him a lot. And also some stuff happened in my life where I started getting some more resolve, some like, I guess, denser mental muscle. And you don't always want to hear somebody like doing the whole raw thing in terms of like motivational speakers and stuff.
Didn't connect with you anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I needed something that was deeper. So that's when I started really taking in his stuff. And recently it's just been every day, like for the past like few months, just every day listening to something that he has to say. And it's helped tremendously. Every time I wake up, I always think, because I'm like, I could go back to bed. I'm like, but who would I be in 10 years if I just did the things I know I should do?
Well, yeah, it's those small, seemingly small battles, right? Actually, something Peterson would always say, when he's quoting Jung, he says that the reason why people don't find God is because they don't stoop low enough.
Yeah.
And the way I understand that is that we never ascend. We never reach these transcendent heights because we always get caught up in grandiosity. We always think that, like, you can apply it to success or being the person you want to be. We always think that it's going to be some dramatic event that happens at some point. But no, it's actually a lot of mundane shit, like waking up early in the morning and making your bed and you know, just being a little bit more responsible today than you were yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. It really did. It's really the small stuff, like making the bed and like waking up early. It sounds so weird, but it can change your life because it snowballs. It snowballs into other things. I'm actually reminded of our first conversation when we were in the coffee shop, when you talk about mastering your space.
Yes.
You were talking about that, and it's kind of like the same thing. Like you master one thing, and then like all of a sudden you look at something else, and you're like, I can like tighten that up, and then you look over there, and you're like, I can tighten that up, and then all of a sudden you look at this relationship in your life, and you're like, I can tighten that up, and then it's like you look at your career, and you're like, that could be better, and then all of a sudden you're a different person.
Yeah, it's almost like solving a problem in one domain. It serves as an analogy for solving problems in all these other domains.
Yeah.
But it also gives you this sense of energy. Right?
Yeah.
Like you unlock a little bit of vitality when you clean your room.
Yes.
Or when you put that thing in order that's been bothering you. And then you can cash out that vitality to do the next thing. And then next thing you know, you're on a success spiral.
Yeah. A success spiral.
Yeah, a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, that's so true. I think I forget what his name is. I want to say Nietzsche. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Nietzsche, or I think so.
Nietzsche?
Yeah.
The philosopher?
Yeah. I think he said when you touch one thing deeply, you touch all other things deeply. So, which makes a lot of sense, because like I said, like I have that goal of running, and as I get deeper into that, like I'm able to see deeper into other things. Like as I get deeper into like doing my video stuff and like really concentrating on it, I start to like being able to do that with other things. Like,
yeah.
It, like you just said, it's like an analogy for other things. Even as I'm talking now, or even as I'm running now, I'm starting to realize that I want to write a book, and it's going to be about running, but it's going to be an analogy for like life.
Right.
So slowly I'm going to do that. It's probably going to be 12 chapters for like each month of the year, because that's how long I'm running for, and then see where that goes. But yeah, it's very true.
Have you ever read The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin?
No.
So Waitzkin was a chess prodigy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but he was at some point one of like the world's best chess players.
Really?
Yeah. And he accomplished a lot of success in that domain.
Of course.
But then later on in life, he got into a form of like combative Tai Chi. I think it's called Tai Chi Chuan.
Okay.
It's a completely different domain.
Of course.
But he reached like international levels at that as well. So he had developed some sort of, let's say, meta learning skill set that, you know, reached success and caused him to reach success in chess, and then also led to success in Tai Chi Chuan. And there's this beautiful chapter in the book where he's talking about how at some point he was playing high-level chess games while also competing in high-level martial arts. And he had this weird moment where he realized that he'd be coming from a martial arts tournament, and he realized that I just played chess with that guy instead of fighting him. And then he'd play a chess game, and he's like, that game, it was completely Tai Chi. It wasn't chess. And it was almost as if these two seemingly different domains were ultimately connected by some sort of common groundwork. And by reaching that level of mastery in both, he unlocked that like meta skill, and he was able to draw on insights from success in both domains. and bring like new things to chess through Tai Chi and new things to Tai Chi through chess.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
It's weird, but it's not at the same time. Because that does make sense. Like as you get super skilled in something, you'll understand other things just as well. To an extent, I guess. I don't know. I haven't touched too many things too deeply to understand. I know right now, because I know psychedelics really deeply, I'm able to look at other things in life and be like, it's kind of like that. Like I compare running to like a mushroom. I think I might have told you I had a mushroom experience where I just listened to Jordan Peterson, and like the same way that your thoughts race when you're on psychedelics, on psilocybin mainly, is the same way they do when you're running. It's like you can't grasp onto anything. You're thinking, and like weird thoughts will come up, and that's why I compare it, because like I had these like really deep thoughts, like I'll run by somebody and like I'll have this weird thought of like resentment, and I'll be like, why do I resent, like why is like resentment coming up right now? And then all of a sudden I look up and I'm like in a completely different place because I've been running the whole time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, why am I thinking about that? And then all of a sudden I have a really deep thought or really like happy thought, and like it just keeps going like that, and by the time you know it, like you're back at your finish line, and you're like, what did I just do? Like, was I running it? Like it's very weird. It's a very weird comparison. I'm trying to wrestle out that idea right now because it's just been coming up in the past like week or so that I've been realizing that.
I wonder if it has to do with when you're running, the scene is changing so quickly.
It's probably part of it.
And presumably for a lot of people on psilocybin, something like that is happening as well.
Yeah.
Where the imagery is all over the place. Yeah. And so your mind is forced to keep up in a way. And so you don't get caught up on these silly ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is it. Cause like you'll look and you'll see a car, then you'll be like, I can't focus on the car.
Right.
And then you look down at your feet and you'll be like, I gotta look up. And then you're just kind of like darting around, and like you're running the whole time, but like your mind is just like, at least for me, I don't know what it's like for other people that run. I'm going to have to interview some runners, but like my mind just goes everywhere when I'm running. And I always come up with an insight. I actually had a conversation with myself about resentment while I was running. I was actually running and I asked myself, why all the resentment? And then things would just flash in my head, like people and this and that. And I'd be like, those people didn't do anything to you. So like, why? And I'd ask again, so why all the resentment? And then like other things would pop up. It would go deeper. And then like it'd be like mom and dad and like family and this and that. And I'd be like, but they didn't do anything. They don't control how you are as a person. Like, so why all the resentment? And then all of a sudden it got down to me. And I was like, I'm not happy with myself.
Wow.
And it was so weird. Like I was doing this while I was running. And yeah, it just got down to me. And I was like, I'm not happy with myself. I'm not happy with how I've been doing. And then I was kind of like, so improve yourself. I'm like, if that's the problem, like improve yourself. Whatever the thing is, improve that. Like it's all within your control. There's no need to be resentful towards these people. They didn't do anything to you. Like you control your situations, like not all these different people. It's really weird run.
Yeah. It's like you're running to the truth or something.
Yeah. And like thoughts keep popping up like that. And old thoughts too, like old things that have happened to me. Like I'll think of like an ex I had like 3-4 years ago. I'll be like, that bitch. And I'll be like, but why are you still thinking about that? Stop thinking about that. Like move forward. Like it's so odd. It's so odd.
I sometimes think that we have like a curtain in our minds, and the things that we don't want, the things that we're avoiding, the things that we're not ready to process, we throw behind that curtain. And it takes a lot of mental energy to keep that barrier in place. And so sometimes when you're under a lot of stress, when you're running, when you're in pain, all the demons start to like come out from underneath that curtain, and you're forced to wrestle with them. And it can be overwhelming, especially if they all come out. But sometimes it's like just the right amount of demons come out, and like you wrestle with them and you solve that problem. And then it unlocks a little more vitality because you don't need to hold them back anymore.
Yeah, that's actually really true. That is really true. Because I keep having like these thoughts and like this jumble of thoughts every time I run, and I felt better than ever, like mentally, like not like physically. It's like, yeah, like I feel good physically after I do my run, like my brain's really turned on and everything, but like like my body feels good, but mentally I feel amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now after running like that, and that's what's been keeping me going more than anything. And it's probably because of that, like just the right amount of stuff comes out, because it's only like a 25-minute run,
Right.
so just the right amount of stuff comes out and I deal with it, and then the run's done, and I feel like not only have I triumphed the run, but like that little
You got a bit of bonus as well.
It's really, it's odd. That's actually a really good way to put it, though.
I get this, like a similar experience, and this is kind of another angle, but I take cold showers, and I've been doing them on and off for a number of years, but to this day they still are difficult. It's not like at some point I developed the habit and it's easy. No, it's still uncomfortable every day, and I think that's part of the beauty of it. But what I find is, like, pre-cold shower Daniel is very different from post-cold shower Daniel.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like, and this is the power of the ritual, I'm exposing myself to like an acute level of discomfort voluntarily. And the level of discomfort I experience, especially now in Toronto's winter when the pipes are frozen, is much higher than some of the discomfort that's causing me to shy away from other things in my life.
It's good.
You got a timer.
Go ahead.
So it's almost like by solving for discomfort in this one domain, by really exposing myself and getting over that fear, that resistance, I'm now like, well, okay, like I've already bit the bullet on discomfort, so what else do you got? And maybe that's also what's happening when you're running. It's like you're putting yourself in this place of, strenuous activity, and then you're realizing that you have a little more strength in you than you thought. And so maybe that's why you're able to cope with more. I actually remember Joe Rogan was talking about like his like a debrief of Sober October.
Okay.
And he really pushed it hard in 2018. And he said that one of the most interesting things was realizing that he just wasn't bothered by pettiness anymore when he was working out that hard.
Oh yeah, because they did the workout thing this time.
Yeah. So it's just for people who don't know, like they were working out really, really hard, like competitively at a level of, I think, their own like heart rate or something like that.
Yeah, they were trying to get points basically, and how hard and how long you worked out determined how many points you got. So they're all like really upping it. Yeah,
and that, the way he put it, I think that's so accurate when you're, especially with something like physical exercise.
Yeah,
you toughen yourself to all the other things that previously bothered you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that is true, because less bothers me now from the running, and even more so than when I meditate, because when you meditate you kind of get that same thing. Less things will bother you. Your threshold for stress kind of goes up, but I've noticed it go up substantially more, and I think it's because of what you're saying, because when you meditate you realize that you can be still for a certain amount of time, but when you do the physical thing you realize that you have more strength in you than you thought. Like you have more give, like you can do a lot more than you thought. Because I never thought I could run outside. Like I've never run outside before,
right?
Until like I decided to do it, and I didn't think I could run that far without stopping. Like there's all these like milestones that you kind of hit, and you start to realize like that's why it's like we were saying, you have to be smart about like your knees hurting and everything like that. But at the same time, I'm like I want to see if I can just keep going, even though like they hurt right now. Like I want to see, like right now my calves like kill, like they feel really tight and everything. I'm like, I want to see if I can just keep doing this. Like I want to see what happens to myself. Like,
well, there's some insight in that. Like in order to unlock these greater levels of toughness or strength, you always have to risk something. You know, so you can make it a calculated risk, and you can try not to cause permanent damage, but there's going to be a little bit of risk, right? You're gonna you want to, at some point you want to just step over the line, and not enough to really damage yourself, but so that you know where the line is, and then now you just keep pushing that boundary until it moves. Right.
You know what? That's exactly it. Because I definitely want to push that line. I want to see where it is. That's why I'm doing it 365. I'm gonna do it every day. I want to see what happens.
It's inspiring.
Like maybe I can't do it.
No, I think you can.
I think so too. I think I think we can do a lot more than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna push it. I'm probably gonna go over 700 miles, more than likely. Probably gonna go to like probably almost 800. Probably.
I think you can do more than that.
Maybe, right? Like, because I'm doing 10K in February, then another 5K, and then the rest will be 2K, and then in the summer I want to do a half marathon, full marathon. So it's like I'm gonna be over the numbers I'm supposed to be at. So yeah, it's really it's fun. It's fun to do that kind of stuff. But what question did I have for you? Jeez, we fell away from the questions pretty easy. I knew that would happen with you.
I think that's the only way to do it. Take tangents and come back.
Oh, you know what? I'll skip these. We could talk about B work, because I know you work at B work. We can talk about that later on. But I have this notion that I've been, and I think you could be the person to help me with it. I had this notion because, like I told you, I was producing this podcast, and I started questioning the person that I was doing it with. And there was a conversation that we had, because I remember he said that he wanted it to be fun. And I all of a sudden had this premonition, like this realization. I'm like, not everything that, like, the most fulfilling things that we're supposed to do, that we should do, aren't going to be fun. And it's this weird thing that I have. Like, I should read it more so. What is it? Yeah, so it's like, it's that the most fulfilling things we'll do in life aren't going to be fun. Rather, they're going to be necessary, and some joy will come of it, but they won't be fun things to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm like. I've been having this kind of thought process with a lot of things, because like when I sit down to like edit these things, it's like it's not fun, but like I know it's necessary, and then like it's fulfilling when I'm done. And the runs aren't fun either. Like they're not really. It's not fun while you're trying to get your breath and like stay focused and
right.
ignore back pain and stuff like that. But like it's fulfilling after, and then you get the joy after that. So I'm just wondering what you think of that, if you've ever thought anything like that,
Yeah.
or heard anything like that.
I think by temperament, I'm very partial to that perspective. I think I veer to the kind of stoic or ascetic side of the spectrum.
Okay.
So there's almost like a heroism in putting yourself in a state of hardship and doing the necessary but difficult thing that isn't fun.
Yeah.
But actually quite recently I became more and more open to a counter argument to that, which is if we overly glorify hardship, then we start to preclude the experience of fun. So maybe it is possible that you can have a tremendous amount of fun doing, the video editing or whatever you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe if you properly frame that puzzle, it can be really fun. But if you always frame it from the perspective of it's not about fun, it's about doing the thing that's right and achieving fulfillment afterwards, then you've precluded the possibility of fun. So something that I've been trying to do is inject fun as much as I possibly can. Like I think I'm good with the side of there's a lot of hard shit that you have to do in life in order to get where you want and in order to actually live a good life. Like that, once you bite the bullet on that, I think it's very important to redeem fun.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who's like the perfect example of this. He's hyper disciplined. He's an overachiever, and he's always been an overachiever.
Okay.
But it leads him consistently to burnout.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
And other mental health issues essentially. And what he's realized is that he always had this tendency to take the hard path, and he glorified the hard path.
Okay.
And it's worked well for him because a lot of people don't want to take the hard path. So there's gold to be found at the end of it. But if your entire life is constructed that way, then you're not really able to enjoy most of it. Right? Yeah. You're just waiting for the reward at the end of the difficult thing.
Of whatever,
Yeah. So I like both perspectives. I think there's a lot of value in saying, well, now's not the time for fun. Now's the time to do the right thing and to feel fulfilled. But I think it's also, there's like this other skill where even in those difficult situations, you can inject some fun.
And you call it a skill. That would be a skill. How would you inject fun into things then?
Well, for me, the clearest example is like dark comedy.
Okay.
You know, when something's really horrifying is going on in your life, I think it's always important to reserve the right to make a joke.
Okay.
And some people don't really like that, but I actually think that's like a better way to be than to take things too seriously. I think comedians are great examples of this because for the most part, comedians have a lot of darkness. And as a result, they're willing to go into some of these darker themes, let's say conversationally. And you can see this a lot with a lot of the comedians that have started podcasts. Like they'll go to some dark places.
It's true.
But always adjacent to the challenging dark topic is a joke. Like they're never far away from a joke.
Yeah.
And so they're always able to inject a little bit of humor when you least expect it. And I think that's actually a very profound skill.
Yeah, that is a good example, actually.
Yeah.
That's good for me because I identify with that like perfectly because I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy. So yeah, that is actually a good comparison. Yeah, because they get real dark, and then all of a sudden, the joke will pop out, or even as they're getting dark, like you can see the joke building through the darkness. That is something. I got to think about that more now.
Yeah. Another really like practical thing is I realized this a couple of years ago. Sometimes there's something you have to do.
Yeah.
Or it seems like you have to do it. Let's say you have to do it, or you know, you'll get fired or something like that. And you don't want to do it, but once you realize that you're in a situation where you're going to do it, you can ask yourself, how can I make this fun? And like really genuinely ask yourself that question, and your mind will produce some answers. Like sometimes it's as simple as, you know, it'd be fun to do this while listening to my favorite album, or it'll be fun to do this try to do this in half the time, you know, set a timer or something like that. Just, you find these little creative ways to get the like other parts of yourself on board with the task.
Yeah.
And I think mastering that skill, and I'm nowhere near that, but I think mastering that skill is insanely powerful.
Yeah, that would be. Right now I have a video project that like it's on the screen over there. I still don't want to do it.
Right.
I hate it. Like it's so bad. I just don't want to. And I've been like that with editing other people's stuff for like a few months now. Like I get this anxiety towards it, and I just don't want to do it. I don't know what it is. And today, I actually, in my meditation, something came to me because Jordan Peterson talks about, he was talking about a frightened woman, someone who like builds anxiety.
Right.
But like the example was like a woman, like she gets anxious, like going to the mall, and then like she veers away from going to the mall. And then like he talks about how like your body will start to, like whatever you run away from, your body will be like, okay, that's a scary thing. Like we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it becomes like waiting for a bus, and then it becomes this thing and that thing. And all of a sudden like you're scared all the time. And then in my meditation, like that came to me, like the clip of him saying that. And I was like, okay, so like if I don't stand up to this feeling, it's going to like fester and like spread into something else.
The dragon will grow bigger.
Yeah. So I was like, I have to start standing up to this feeling that I get when this happens, so I can like rid myself of it. And it was a very odd. That's actually why I was late, because I came out of the meditation and I was like, I'm gonna stand up to this feeling for half an hour, like, and I just had to. Like I was supposed to just run and then just come straight to you, but I was like, I have to stand up to this feeling for like 30 minutes.
And what did that entail? Standing up to the feeling?
Just editing, just going at it and just doing it. And just doing it for half an hour, and yeah, it wasn't that bad. Obviously,
it's always like that, right?
Yeah, it's
almost like as soon as you take a step towards the thing that you fear,
it shrinks.
Yeah. But it has to be a sincere step. Maybe it doesn't have to be, but I find that it's much more powerful when you're sincere about it.
Yeah,
maybe sometimes you just go through the motions, and then you end up cultivating sincerity at some point.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's remarkable how much we make life more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, because I should have got this done like a while ago, but like I just didn't want to do it. I was like, I don't want to edit stuff for people anymore, which is still like a thing that I want to start. I know I want to start directing more, and like directing someone on how to edit something and stuff like that. So I'm taking steps towards that. But like while I still have this thing that's under my responsibility, I have to get it done.
Yeah.
If there was a deadline, I'd probably move a little faster, but like there's no deadline. The person just went ghost on me for like two months.
Oh, wow.
I was like, hey, you want these finished? And like they just didn't answer for like 2 months. And I'm like, okay.
So now it's just hanging.
Yeah. So I was just like, I'm just going to work on my own stuff. And like, but now I'm just going to finish it. I'm just going to go as hard as I can and just get it all done.
Yeah.
And be like, here you go. Whether or not you're going to answer the emails or not.
I think with things like this and procrastination in general, it's very helpful to watch your self-talk around the project.
Yeah.
And
life, yeah.
I made a comment earlier, I think before we started, about how you were saying, I have to do this.
Yeah.
And I think when you speak like that, you're subtly communicating to yourself that you actually don't want to.
Yeah, definitely.
And so catching that and saying, I want to do this, or I choose to do this because, and then framing it in a way that actually speaks to you, is also another skill that I think can help us overcome some of these things that we're resisting.
Yeah, it infuses you with a little bit of enthusiasm, I guess.
Yeah.
When you do it that way. Yeah, I got to start doing that.
What?
I choose to do that.
There you go.
Because it would make my life better. I think that works. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. With that video project, I got to start framing it that way and just start.
You want to.
Yeah, I want to.
No, I totally get it. I'm so guilty of this. It's hard, yeah.
Especially if you have somebody. It was like I was saying with the speaking, the ums and the ahs, like you don't catch it until like somebody else like points it out.
Right.
Or until like you like play it back and like hear it. Yeah, that's so true. I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to frame that better.
That's good.
Man. Yeah. So that was that. Oh, what else? I was going to move on to habits, but then I have right here in big writing. What was the darkest time in your life and how did you get through it?
Oh, man. I had a feeling this question would come up. I want to answer this truthfully.
As truthfully as you see fit.
Yeah. So I will say this. I'm actually going through a pretty dark time right now.
Really?
Yeah, and I think in the grand scheme of my life, I might look back on this time as the darkest or one of the darkest.
Wow.
But I feel that I'm very well prepared for dealing with it. Because, and this is the answer I would previously give. I went through a really dark time when I was in undergrad, and I was battling depression.
Okay.
And so that's when people ask this question, what's the darkest time you've ever been through? I'd go back to that. And it's a very difficult thing to communicate in a way that's relatable because it doesn't really follow a story structure, right? It's not like something particularly significant happened. But I guess there are a couple themes. So when I was in my third year of university, I was a resident. So I lived with students, and I was the guy in the red vest who would make sure people weren't drinking themselves to death. And
really?
Yeah. I loved it. I think it was a great job. But unfortunately, that year we had a lot of students with mental health issues, and I had 2 students on my floor who took attempts on their life.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this theme of suicidality, and apathy and lack of meaning was very heavy on me that whole year.
Definitely.
Luckily those 2 students were fine, but I don't know if I was just affected by it more than I knew, or it activated some of the darkness that was dormant or latent within me.
Yeah.
I also, it's worth mentioning that growing up religious with a perspective on the world that's orienting you towards something, and then losing that, and like that is a very traumatic process, right?
For sure.
And it had been some time since I had, updated my models of reality, but I hadn't found a philosophy that was sufficiently compelling to deal with some of the difficulty that I was facing at that point in my life. So I had a lot of issues with meaning. I also had insomnia that year, and so
sleep depravity. Yeah,
you can imagine, like, that messes up your circadian rhythms. It messes up your sense of time.
Yeah, hormones,
everything, right?
Yeah.
So that was like the darkest, or one of the darkest periods of my life, and the way that I got through it was, and I should also say, this is in retrospect, me trying to add a story to it. So I'm not exactly sure what precipitated all the things that pulled me out of it, but it was like a lot of reps, a lot of really like throwing myself at the wall, trying to pull myself up by my own bootstraps. And so specifically, I remember there were days where I didn't like the thought of even just moving was daunting.
Yeah.
Let alone be a productive student and, manage the 60 people on my floor and like all the other responsibilities that I had. But I still had to do those things, and I knew that not doing those things would have consequences. So I was put in this position where I had to figure it out somehow.
Wow.
And I actually had to. I didn't want to. I had to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this idea came up one day where I imagined this ladder where the responsibility that I ultimately wanted or needed to do was at the top of the ladder, and I was right at the bottom on like ground zero, rock bottom. And I couldn't see myself getting up there and doing the thing that I was supposed to do, whether it was study for an exam, do an essay, go to the gym, like all the things, the good things. But I could see the first rung of the ladder, and that wasn't too bad. The top of the ladder was intimidating, but the first rung wasn't. And so I started to create a list of what could be the first rung of this ladder. And I came up with really trivial things. Definitely. Really, really simple things like drink a glass of water. It's good to hydrate. You're doing something good for your body. You're taking one micro step in the right direction. You're grabbing the first rung of the ladder. Or take a mindful breath. That was another one. Okay. Do 3 squats with perfect form.
True.
Do a plank for 30 seconds. Make your bed. Clean up this corner of your room. Like just little things like that. And I made a list, and I, as down, as unmotivated, as apathetic as I felt, there was always something on that list that I could do.
Of course. And
I found that when I did that, it would then I'd be on the next rung, and I feel a little bit like the clouds would clear up a little bit, and I'd feel a little bit more motivation to do the next thing, and the next thing, and I'd just focus on each rung, and I'd pull myself out from where I was.
Wow.
So that skill, that vision of the ladder was so helpful for me, and I still return to it sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
That's really good. Huh. I've never thought of that. The ladder. Huh. That's really cool.
Sometimes it's a ladder to greatness, right? The ladder to success, but sometimes it's just the ladder to neutral.
Yeah.
Right? And that's okay. We sometimes you have days where you're really down, and it's worth accepting that and realizing that there are things you can do to increase the probability that you balance out, that you get back to neutral. And then once you're there, you can keep going if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that same thing. I wish I had the idea of a ladder. I remember back when I was really depressed, I think it's probably like 19 or 18. It was a time where my weed addiction was getting like way out of control, and I was like waking up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I would just be like, and like I just kept trying to like figure out little things I could do, and like my ladder was like like, don't smoke weed until you've gone to the gym, and
Right.
came home and showered. And like, that was like my thing. And like, then it was like, don't smoke weed until you've like eaten something.
Yeah, yeah.
Eat first, like, you fucking guy. Like, take a shower first. Like,
Well,
shit.
that's actually really powerful. Carl Jung said that the psyche really likes deal making. So you essentially set up these deals where there's a part of you that wants to waste the day and relax and shirk responsibility.
Yeah.
But there's another part of you that's like, dude, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And if you make a deal so that both those parts can be sufficiently happy,
Yeah.
then you can actually take steps forward.
True. Yeah, that is what was happening. I just kept making deals until that one side of me that was like trying to get shit done just like tricked the other one.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you got to use that, right?
It's like, now go to sleep without it.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, what?
Although I think that can backfire, right?
Yeah.
Like I used to do this thing where if there was a task that I was avoiding,
Yeah.
I'd say, okay, no, you just do 5 minutes of the task. Set a timer. You can do 5 minutes, right? Sit down and work on it for 5 minutes.
Definitely.
But as soon as I do the 5 minutes, I'd like break the ice, and so I'd keep going, and I'd work for 2 hours, and I'd finish the task. And so the next time I needed to use that trick, my psyche didn't buy it, because it's like, no, it's never 5 minutes, bro. It's always 2 hours. So I think it's actually valuable to maintain your side of the bargain, right?
Yeah, at some point, right? Like, yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's always 2 hours, bro.
You can make another deal after the 5 minutes, but
Yeah, you got to keep like upping it or changing it or something like that. But yeah, the ladder, that's actually a really impactful thing. That's really good. You should frame a talk around that.
yeah,
You definitely should.
I like how visual it is too. I
Yeah,
think people connect
that's
with
the
that.
thing. Like right away, I was like, yeah, ladder. Like
Yeah.
definitely. Like the first rung is always like so easy. Like you might be afraid of heights, but like you're not afraid of like stepping 1 foot off the ground.
Exactly.
You know? And then like, yeah, that's so true. I like that. I like that a lot. I like the tangents. But that sounds, yeah, it sounds like you were really deep in depression, because I've had that exact same thing. Like not wanting to leave my bed, not wanting to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to deal with, and it's hard when I've never had religion in my life at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what it's like to like not have anything to like grab onto, and like this thing's going to tell you it's going to be okay. It's rough. It's really rough.
Yeah, and I would venture that it's much more common than we think for people to feel that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I think the uncommon thing is people actually opening up about it.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like I've seen that in, like, each one of my friends at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they'll never, like, want to, not all of them, but, like, they'll never want to, like, open up and talk about it. But, like, you can see it. Like, I've had a friend, I'll be like, yo, you spend your whole day in your bed. Like, everything's in your bed, so you don't have to leave your bed.
Right.
Maybe you should, like, and they'll be like, I'll just work out at home. I'm like, maybe you should just leave and go to the gym. Like, it might feel better if you just walk outside for, like, 10 minutes. And then, yeah, you see that a lot. It's a weird thing. I think eating has a lot to do with it. I've been following Jordan Peterson's advice with getting a pretty high-fat, high-protein breakfast in when I wake up. Like, that's how I break my fast. I still do intermittent fasting, but, like, when I break it, it's usually high-fat, high-protein. I feel so much better. Like, my brain feels turned on a lot more.
Yeah, get the good stuff in the morning.
Yeah, I stay away from carbs. I try to.
Carbs are the enemy.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I mean, a lot of people don't say that, but, like, I don't know. It seems like they are.
No, I think it's funny to be facetious about it, but I do think, generally speaking, most people would benefit a lot from significantly reducing their carbohydrate intake.
Yeah.
And the best place to start is just cut out refined carbohydrates.
Yeah. That's exactly what I did. I get my carbs from, I mean, there's not a lot of them, but like from fruits and from vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I try to keep it. Except if you saw the accountability mirror, February 1st, I'm eating a whole pizza. That's what I'm going to do on February 1st.
So you're delaying the pizza.
Yeah, I have to. I want to get eating stuff like that down to like once a month.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be dabbling constantly with little here, little there, because I find that, like, if I were to tally it all up throughout a month, like through like August and September and January, or not January, through June and July, like if I tallied it all up, it would like stack up to like a lot more than if I just do it once a month.
Yeah.
And just like eat like a medium pizza or a small pizza even, and just leave it at that.
There could also be some value in overdoing it.
Yeah.
And then hating yourself.
Yeah, I know that's gonna happen. Definitely. That's 100% gonna happen. That happened to me the other day. My girlfriend, she got me fries. I hadn't eaten because I do the fasting. It was like 3:00, and she got me fries. Like, I got a salad from Mr. Greek, and she got fries, and she's like, "We'll share it." And I ate them, and I felt so sick when we got home. Like, I felt like I was gonna barf. I was trying to like stretch, and I was like, "This is crazy." Like,
it's so good to, like, okay, so your, no pun intended, gut reaction in that moment is going to be to downplay or distract yourself from the negative body sensations. And oftentimes when we make bad dietary decisions, it's because we're in a state of avoidance or escapism, and the food kind of serves like as a vehicle for further escape.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is you're not fully experiencing the negative consequences of your actions. Yeah. So you're losing out on the opportunity to learn not to do that again.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of value, I think, in essentially mindfully like engaging with the negative consequences.
Yes.
Right. So really feeling just how bad it feels to have eaten a whole pizza.
Yeah.
And then you create that feedback loop, so your brain doesn't crave it as much anymore.
Yeah, that is true. Because while I was like feeling sick, I'm like, I'm not eating fries anymore. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, I don't want to eat fries anymore.
Yeah.
Like, they're so bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, this feeling is just so bad. And also because I have the goal of running, I'm like, I'm going to feel like shit.
Exactly.
And I'm going to have to do this run. And I want to do it early in the morning. So it's like, ugh, what's going to happen now? Like, am I messing? I don't want to mess that up for these short term, as Joe Rogan puts it, mouth pleasures. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, you know what? We should get into habits. That's what I want to get into. So in your blog, generative, is that how you say that?
Generative.
Yeah, generative. Okay. I've never even seen that word before. I told you I'm gonna have to keep up with you. Generative habits. You have a blog post, all right? So you talk about the say-do gap, making commitments when your motivation levels are uncommonly high, and that we need to trivialize our goals. So can you like speak more about that?
Yeah. So, if you look at your life, often and you look at the moments where you've had the greatest success with a difficult task or a habit or something like that. It's usually when you're motivated in a way that's not normal for you, right? It's like an uncommon motivation. It's like, it's the New Year's, or you received a pep talk from somebody that, you know, you really value, or you had some sort of negative consequence, something like that. Some uncommon event has precipitated an intense level of motivation.
Yeah.
And there's something known as affective forecasting, where the emotions of our current state become projected into the future, and we just assume that we're going to feel the same way in the future. So we start planning out of this heightened state of motivation.
True.
And that's a perfect recipe to fail.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why most people don't stick to their New Year's resolutions, because they're uncommonly motivated, and they're not going to be motivated like that 2 weeks from that point.
Yeah.
But when you're that motivated, it's a bias. You can't actually imagine, unless you really try to, how you're going to feel 2 weeks from then. True. So what do you do, right? And you don't want to tell somebody, when someone's really motivated, you don't want to tell them this, because you're kind of bursting their bubble. You don't want to, like, someone's super motivated. They say, I want to go to the gym 7 days a week. And prior to that, they've never been to the gym. You don't want to say, hey, you should start slow.
Yeah.
Because they'll be irritated at that, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that's what this post was about. It's kind of a reminder to have humility when we're making changes in our lives, because one of the best predictors of future behavior is past behavior. And that's another thing you don't want to hear when you're super motivated, but you should factor that in. And as a result, instead of going to the gym 7 days a week, take that, ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And find like the first rung of the ladder for that goal. Find the fundamental unit of that goal. Find something that is trivially like find something that's beneath you almost.
Mm-hmm.
Something so simple that you're like, is this a joke? Like, is this what you want me to do? So, I was actually telling you this earlier today. So I have a great streak now of going to the gym every day. And today I was so busy that I didn't have time to go. I just didn't plan accordingly. And it was, if I went to the gym, I was going to be late. So I said, well, I want to keep this momentum going. So what's the trivial version of this habit that I can sustain?
Mm-hmm.
And I literally went to the gym and left. Like I just came in, I like signed in, and then I left. And so I did part of the habit, which was the walk it took in the cold to go all the way to the gym and to go in. And that's actually part of the habit itself.
Of course.
And so I kept that alive. So basically break out these goals into these trivial units and then commit to those. Say, I'm going to do that 7 days a week. And what'll happen is over time, they'll start to generate the rest of the habit. So a classic example of this is if you want to learn how to floss, start by flossing one tooth after you brush your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, that's not going to solve my dental hygiene problem. It's like, doesn't matter. It's not about the dental hygiene problem right now. It's about training automaticity. It's about taking something new and installing it into your life. And then over time, it'll grow and you'll start flossing all your teeth.
True. Automaticity? Is that
Yeah.
what it's called?
Just a fancy word for making something automatic.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's actually really cool. I can't think of any times where I've done that. I guess I have done that. I do that with waking up early. I'll like make it, I guess, I don't know if that's the same thing. I'll make it earlier and earlier, but not by much. Like if I'm waking up, like when I was waking up at like 10 a.m., I didn't like just say I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. I'd be like 9:30 and then I'd be like 9 o'clock and like slowly. And I would do each one for like 2 weeks. I'd just be like 9:30 for 2 weeks.
Right.
9 o'clock for 2 weeks. That kind of thing. But yeah, trivializing your goals. Having humility is, I think, a big thing of it.
Yes.
Because, yeah, I think even David Goggins talks about it. He'll like say like he wanted to do something. He'll be like, oh, that was stupid of me. But like, I didn't think of that. Like I was like pumped up.
Yeah.
And he made like a certain goal. I forget what it was. Maybe it was like his Badwater run or something like that. But yeah, it's so true. Because you get pumped up.
Yeah, and then you feel this energy, but it's a prideful energy.
Yeah.
And the thing with pride is it's correlated with blind spots. So the more prideful you are, the more blind you will be to things that you don't even know you're blind to.
Yeah. And back to David Goggins, I forget what part it was. I have to go through the book again, but he was saying like he would visualize the run and be like, it's going to feel like shit here because there's a hill here. And like, I have to remember that kind of thing. And I think that kind of goes in line with what you're saying. Like, he's like, he knows he's going to do it, but he's also thinking of like the shitty parts.
Yeah.
And not just like glorifying the whole thing.
Yeah, that's totally related. It's like you plan for some form of failure. You plan for your motivation to dip. Yeah. And actually, Seth Godin wrote a book about this called The Dip, and it's a really useful concept to have, where this happens to everybody. This happens to top performers. This happens to people that we put on pedestals and are inspired by. There's a point where their motivation disappears, and it's usually when you've lost the novel energy that comes from starting a new project, but you're far away from the culmination of it. So you're also away from that new energy you get when you're approaching the finish line. You're like somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And you're just in the thick of it, and you just start to lose your drive. And if you anticipate that, just know that the dip's going to happen like 2 weeks after you start a project. Then you're like David Goggins preparing for the hill. And then when it happens, you're like, oh yeah, this is the dip. Okay, cool. It's not going to be like this forever. And this is its own kind of meta challenge. And if I just keep hustling through the dip, then I'll eventually get my next stride.
Yeah. You know what? When I run, I think of that, because I always think like there's always a time where I'm like, once I leave here, I'll be too far away to go back.
Yeah.
And I'll have to finish. And I always think of that time of when I'm like trying to get my breath. And yeah, it's hard. UFC fighters do that too. They'll picture I'm probably gonna botch what I'm saying here, but they picture like getting hit,
right?
Like at certain points, or like he's gonna come with this, or like that's his trademark thing, and like that's gonna really hurt. Getting kicked like right here, like that's what he does a lot. He's really good at it. That's gonna hurt, so I have to like prepare for that. And as soon as it comes, they're not jostled by it, because they're like, yeah, that's what he does. That's what he was gonna do.
Right.
I already knew that, and they just kind of go through it. That's really cool. See, I like breaking down this whole thing of habits, because like I'm really trying to, as much as like people, they'll see me like on social media and stuff, and like I have like all these great habits, like I have to solidify them so much more than it would seem, I guess. So I really just want to learn how to do that. I have to learn about habits like so much, and like talk about it so much, because it's really important to like get good. It's like I'm preparing for a war or something.
Yeah. Well, it's your habits inform who you are, but they also habits are going to be responsible for your success or your downfall, right? It's, habits are agnostic in a sense. They could be terrible habits and they'll lead you astray, or they could be amazing habits. And the thing is, they're free, right? It's like once it's a habit, you're not actively thinking about it. You're not expending energy to do it. So you might as well stack the deck in your favor and develop as many amazing habits as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And then they start generating the life that you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think my main habit that I have to get down the most is following a schedule. I really want to be able to follow the schedule. Like Jordan Peterson says, like you plan out the day you want. And I think even Jocko talks about it. Like once you do that, like that's where the freedom is. Like once you structure all that and have that discipline to follow it, you're actually more free than you would be otherwise. And it's really hard. I keep trying to like section it out into like half hour chunks. And I'm like, fuck, I just keep fucking it up along the way. Well,
that's a skill that's going to take a long time to develop.
Yeah, it feels like
it. And so, again, like applying that humility that, like I remember I struggled a lot, and I still struggle with scheduling. Scheduling's a challenging one, because it's, you get ambitious, or there's the affective forecasting again, where you think that you're going to feel as motivated as you feel in the morning when you've had your super strong coffee as you will like when, at 5 p.m. or whatever at the end of the workday. And so a lot of it has to do with understanding who you are. But there are ways in which you can make the schedule easier, and something, or the scheduling process easier on yourself. Something Peterson always says is make the schedule your friend. I remember actually something he told me in person. He said that he would negotiate with himself. If he had a lot to do and he wanted to get these 50 things done that day, he would ask his psyche, what would it take so that I will willingly do all these 50 things? And then he'd come up with a reward. Essentially, he'd be like, well, if you go to your favorite burger place or something like that, or you find and you learn more about yourself, right? You learn what it is that all the different warring personalities that make up who you are. Like I almost imagine that there's like a boardroom of Daniels.
Yes.
And they're almost never in alignment. Yeah. And they're all like, they're talking past each other. But occasionally through mindfulness, you can rally them together, and you can come up with a plan that they all agree to. And when you do that, you'll have uncommon levels of energy.
Yeah.
You'll be able to burn the midnight oil. These pathways open up, and you tap into a deeper level of vitality that you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
So that your schedule should reflect that.
Yeah, true. I like the negotiating thing, because I kind of do that. I like the whole talking to your psyche thing, because I definitely do that. When I first started running, I would definitely do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I would literally, but it was more like a it was more like a David Goggins type of negotiation. I'd be like, "You're here to run, motherfucker." I would literally yell that out. I'd be like, "You're here to run. Like, run. Just don't stop. Keep going. Like, you're not stopping." And it was like me just trying to tell my brain, like, no, we don't stop here. Like, we're not stopping here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about this pain. Like, this will go away. Like, keep going. But I didn't give myself any rewards.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing, right? I gotta work on that, because that could work. Because I could use a burger right now. Maybe if I edit this thing, I'll give myself a burger.
Yeah. Do it. Earn the burger.
Yeah. Right. That's so true. That's what I say about the pizza. I'm like, I gotta earn it.
Yeah. I think there's a theme with some of the things we're talking about where you mentioned humility, but another side of humility is, or another way to think about it, is not taking yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of one of the issues I've had, where in these moments when you really want to do something challenging, you're kind of determined, right? You're serious.
Yeah, of course.
And so when someone's like, well, we should see what everybody else at the boardroom table wants, and maybe you'd have a better time of it if you had a burger, or if you some sort of silly, like, seemingly childish thing. You don't want to identify with that side of yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're in your David Goggins energy or something like that.
Yeah.
And the fact is that kind of self-talk can also be very powerful at times, but I think there's a trade-off there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you don't take yourself so seriously, it opens up the opportunity for these funny moments of creativity that can actually lead to a better week, a better chance at success.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, not taking yourself so seriously. That is something I have to do more of, because I take shit like serious. Like, I got my passions and my talents and everything. Like, I'm like so serious about my shit, because I wanna succeed. Like, I wanna become something, right? So
there's tension, right? Because everyone talks about the value of self-compassion.
Yeah.
And I think guys like us, we kind of have a visceral reaction to that.
Yeah.
Because if you're inspired by people like Jocko Willink and David Goggins and Jordan Peterson, and it's almost like this it's a very hard-nosed masculine approach to life.
Yeah, definitely.
And that deeply resonates with me. But there's definitely a place for self-compassion.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a place for fun. And
it's true.
It's valuable to have this holistic personality, this holistic definition of success.
Well-rounded kind of thing. Yeah, it is true.
It's like you were talking earlier that you have to have a certain level of self-trust. And that's true. But at the same time, it's important to have a rational paranoia of failure.
Yeah.
Because success is not easy. Most people are going to live mediocre lives by definition. And statistically, that's going to happen to us as well if we don't get after it.
Yeah.
So that you need that. You need that rational paranoia.
Roger
yeah. Yeah, exactly. But how can you have that level of determination with the self-compassion and the fun and the being silly and not taking yourself so seriously?
Yeah. I think where I can do it, like, I think where I unconsciously do it is with my girlfriend. Because, like, she's, like, not like that whole, like, hard-nosed, like, thing. So it's like, I know that I have to, like, lay off that when she's around. I have to like, take it easy a little bit. But I'm still in it at the same time. Like, she'll get over here, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, okay, I just got to do this on the computer. I have to, like, record a podcast quickly, and I'm just going to do this and upload this and do that. Because, like, I know what I have to do. But she's very supportive of it. But at the same time, like, that is the time where I have to, like, have fun and, like, be silly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard.
They're all skills, right?
Yeah, because I want to, like I said, I want to become something more than what I am, much more. Like I said, I want to speak. I want to do stuff. I want to be more than the videographer. I want this podcast to do very well. I want it to like, you know, and I'm competitive. Like I want to be like the best.
I can see that.
I want to be like the best in like Ontario, easy. Like Toronto, like I want to like be better in like every podcast.
I think you can do it.
I think so too. I think that's what I'm shooting for, right? Like
it's all about reps.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
And I think self-compassion can be in service of persistence.
Yeah.
Because if the whole thing is just brutal, then at some point part of you is going to be like, why are we still doing this? There's like a low probability of success, and I'm just, you know, burning the candle at both ends. But if you're able to inject fun and self-compassion into that process and still show up every day and still keep the determination, then I mean, anything's possible, right? You can put all the reps and get to where you want to go.
That's what I'm noticing. Putting in the reps, doing the work. As long as you do the work, the things that you want will come. As long as you put yourself out there and do that work and everything. But the whole injecting the fun, that's like what I have to work on. That's what I have to work on.
That's what you want to work on.
Oh yeah. Shit.
I've been resisting the urge to. I probably said, you know, things like that throughout this conversation.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I realized that when I had a conversation with my buddy Phil. I actually had a falling out with my friend Phil, and all of a sudden I was at the gym and I'm like looking at my phone. I think I was putting on like Can't Hurt Me because like I listen to like stuff like that when I'm in the gym. Like I don't listen to music. And then I look up and he's there, and like he lives in Calgary, so like the fact that he was there, I was like, what the fuck? And he has like long hair now. And he's like, I was like, it's so weird. And like he had his arms open, and right away we just hugged, and like we just forgot about all that because it was like a trivial thing anyway. And right away he's like, I want to be on the podcast, and we sat down and had a conversation, and it was like a 3-hour conversation. It was really long, really good, much better than I thought it would be. And he made me see that I want this to be a very informational podcast where people can learn and everything, but he made me see the value of having fun conversations.
Yeah.
Like we started talking about like what happens when you die, like taking your last breath.
That's fun.
And it's but like it's interesting, right? It's like these ideas that kind of border, and like I think we talked about like a conspiracy theory of like mountains are actually petrified trees that somebody cut down, some like society cut down.
Right, so more absurd, exploratory.
Yeah, exactly, that's a good word for
stoner
it.
thought level conversation.
Yeah, because he was high as shit. Like he brought a huge bag of weed with him, and he was like lighting joint. Yeah, he was going nuts. Like he had the smoke before we started anything. And then you know, when that timer went off, he's like, I'm gonna go smoke again. I'm like, no, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, I'm gonna roll a joint. He started rolling a joint like on camera, I think. But yeah, he showed me that like I should have more fun with it, because like that was one of the funnest podcasts I'd ever done, like up until that point. So I was like, yeah, I do have to have fun in that sense.
Yeah, if you could be laughing your way to your goals, that's like the best case scenario.
Yeah.
And I think somebody who's like the patron saint or the poster child of this approach is Richard Branson. He's someone who's killing it in every definition of the term, maybe not every definition. And he's always enthusiastic. He's always happy.
Always.
I think he was asked like, what is your mission statement or something? And it was something along the lines of learning from my mistakes and having fun on my journey in life. Like that's the way he's geared.
Yeah.
And it was working for him.
Yeah, he's actually a really good example of that. The first book that I ever read, cover to cover, the first books were his books. He has like 10 of them. I remember I just read them day after day after day. I was reading like his the way he does his marketing and where he's come from and everything, and how he looks at the world and how he looks at business, and the fact that he is this fun person, like super fun, super energetic, like this fun guy enjoying life. But then also like on the business side, when he goes into negotiations, he's like a shark. Yeah. He's like
he must be.
Yeah, he's like a predator.
I read Losing My Virginity. I think it's his biography.
Yeah.
I read that a few years ago. Super inspiring.
Yeah, man. I like that a lot. I like, in terms of business, I always like when I have a business that's at that level, like he's part of the reason why I decided to get in front of a camera, because I was like, because everything he would do in terms of his marketing would be like, it's gonna be him that climbs the fucking hot air balloon and like has tea with somebody. Like it's gonna be him that jumps off this thing. It's gonna be him that does it. Like he gets in the trenches in terms of that. And that was really inspiring, like super inspiring, amazing. He actually has a story where he jumps, I forget what it was. He was on a hot air balloon, and I believe he hit like a jet stream or something, and they like went like 10,000 feet into the air, like they weren't supposed to be there. And he was just like, he's like, oh man, he's like, I gotta jump. He's like, I can't, we're stuck in this thing. And like he jumped, I think he jumped off and like parachuted, and then was just in the middle of the ocean. And he was just like, he's just waiting. He's like, either like sharks are gonna come or like a helicopter is gonna come. And he's just like waiting there. He's just like, let's see what happens. And I was like, wow, I'm like, that's crazy. And every time he does those stunts, he writes a letter to his kids in case he dies.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even on that air balloon, he entered like foreign airspace or something.
Yeah. And it was something crazy. Like it was really unexpected, and they were just up there, and he was just like, I gotta jump. Like there was like no other choice.
Yeah, that's
it's nuts.
What a life.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And to what you were saying, I think in that letter he always writes like, I was doing what I wanted to do, like I was having fun, and like it's like a really touching, like inspiring letter that he leaves for his kids every single time.
I think he's a very good example of authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
really good.
It's wonderful to see people like that.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you see them make it.
Yeah.
So voraciously.
Yeah.
Voraciously. Yeah. Like it's nuts. Him and John Paul DeJoria, I like a lot. The creator of Patron.
Oh.
Yeah. The old billionaire. He's an amazing guy. And if you look into him, like he just a really touching story. He also made that hair product or salon product called Paul Mitchell, I believe. And yeah, he just has a really touching story about just being homeless and having to sell this stuff door to door.
Right.
Just the whole thing, like him and his kid like living in a car together, and it's just like really crazy story. But he just made it really big, and he made it by like being authentically him and being good. Like never like stepping on people, never doing the whole like regular capitalist thing.
Mm-hmm.
He always was like, was really good. Actually, when I was depressed, he was actually he was something that I turned to a lot. I would listen to him because I've never met any of my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always listen to him because he sounded like an old grandfather.
Right.
And it always sounded really like calming and soothing. And
he became your surrogate grandpa.
Yeah, because he would always be like, anytime he would talk about like his journey, he'd be like, you got to get prepared to hear a lot of rejection. You're going to hear a lot of no's. He's like, but you're going to get those yeses too, as long as you keep going. And I was like, yeah, that's what I need to hear. Man. Oh, what else about habits? Here's one. Where do you think habits come from? Like, why are some things that we do sometimes, and why are other things horrible habits or good habits?
Yeah. So I'm not completely up to date on the literature here, but there's a general rule that which is rewarded persists. And a formula for thinking about habits is that there's a cue, a stimulus that prompts the habit. There's the habit itself, the routine, and then there's a reward. The power of habit. Charles Duhigg, he talks about that whole structure.
Charles Duhigg?
Duhigg with the G. I recommend the first half of that book. That was one of the books that I stopped reading partway through. But yeah, so it's a very important principle, because if you manage your rewards, or if you make sure you reward the behavior that you really want to reward, that you really want to stick, then you will increase the odds of that becoming a habit. And it's helpful to think about counterproductive habits, like procrastination. Some of them are obvious. Like if someone is addicted to a drug, you see the reward is the experience that the drug is precipitating. But something like procrastination, that's a little more interesting. It's something everybody does. Some people are chronic procrastinators, and it's because there's actually a reward involved every time you avoid a task. For that moment, you feel this short-term reprieve. You feel like, oh, okay, you get to suspend the laws of reality for a second and watch a YouTube video or something.
Sometimes
right?
I feel so good when I procrastinate.
Yeah.
I'll think of the thing and I'll be like,
and then you get comfortable and like,
it's so weird.
Yeah. So the reason why procrastination becomes a habit for many people is because there's a reward loop there. And especially if the negative consequences are delayed.
Yeah.
So you don't you don't get punished for it until like 2 days later.
Yeah, or like
right?
2 months later.
Or never, or you just don't even know, right? You were punished and you don't even realize it was related to what you did.
True.
3 months ago.
True. That actually. Oh shit. Press that again. Yeah, that is true. Huh. Yeah, that's weird. I'm just thinking of things I'm procrastinating. Because it's true when you think about it. The rewards. I guess I got to reward myself more. I got to figure out the reward system.
Yeah.
That I can work out for myself. That's the one thing that I don't have. Like I have a box of accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time like I write one of those goals down, I'll like write accomplished on it and I'll throw it in a box.
Yeah.
So like later on when I feel like I haven't done anything, I look at it and I see that I've done shit. And I also have a box of failure. Anytime I fail one of those goals, like so I remember like it's not all accomplishments.
Right.
Like it just keeps me going kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I need to work out a reward system, I guess.
A friend of mine last night was telling me how the way he manages his impulse buying on Amazon is he will procrastinate on the purchase. So he'll have an impulse to buy something and then he'll say, okay, I won't buy it now. If it's more than $50, he said, I won't buy it now. I'll buy it tomorrow. So he adds it to a wish list. And then what ends up happening is he'll kind of forget about it the next day.
Okay.
But then he's amassed a wish list of all these really cool things that he's had the impulse to buy. And some of them like he's forgotten about and they don't matter to him anymore.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of goodies on that list. And so that became like a little reward system for him. So when he's feeling down or he needs like, something to look forward to,
he'll like look at the list.
He'll look at the list and like, all right, what am I going to get today? And then he'll just grab something from the list.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I definitely don't want to get into that.
Yeah, that could be dangerous.
That could be costly.
Yeah. A simple, inexpensive way to reward yourself is, and it sounds really, really silly, and so it's related to humility and not taking yourself too seriously, is actually have like a 2-second celebration when you do something right.
Yeah, that's also something
just
to work on.
Like dance or go like, yes, I did it.
Yeah.
And just like enjoy the fact that you did it and celebrate it, or even like be really extravagant about it. Just like boost yourself up.
Do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. I don't do that enough. Not nearly enough.
Yeah.
Like for all the things that like I've done, like back in August, around the end of summer, I was forced to, because I was actually looking for a job. I had to write a resume. And the previous resume that I had written before was like back when I was working at like factories and grocery stores and stuff.
Right.
So I had to write down everything that I could do now. And like I saw it all and I'm like, I've celebrated none of this.
Right.
Like I knew how to do all this new stuff. Like it was crazy, all this stuff that I learned how to do. But like I'd never stopped and celebrated. I'm always looking. I think Alan Watts always talks about like, well, he used to talk about how the future, like that future self doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're always just pushing, and by the time you get there you're already concentrating on the next future
Exactly.
self. And yeah, that's something that I have a problem with. I'm constantly doing that.
There's a lot of value to being future minded.
Yeah, of course.
And I think Alan Watts would say this, that you could make the case that the future doesn't actually exist and it's only the present exists.
Yes.
So if we're always future minded, then we're only in a conceptual state. We're not in the real world anymore.
Yeah.
Because the future is a concept.
Yeah.
And the more you train that, the less present you'll be when your life is passing by.
Yeah.
And when
100%.
the great things are happening, or you're at the top of the mountain, or you achieve the goal, you won't even be there for it.
Yeah.
You'll be looking at the next thing.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
I actually got another reality check of that because the podcast is actually now available on iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher.
Right.
So I had to get the old ones, and I had to watch the first episode I did.
Right.
And I was like, yo, I'm like, this is so fucking different than what I do now. Like, I've learned so much.
It's transformed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, it was just like another reality check that like, I used to be this, and like I've grown into this, and like, I just don't celebrate it. I have to start doing that. The only time I've started
want to.
Yeah. Shit.
I'll stop. I won't say it anymore.
No, that's great. I want to start celebrating that. I do it when I run sometimes, because I'll be running and I'll like, I know I've pushed myself way past like what I did yesterday, and I'll literally just be like, yes, like while I'm running. I'll like, woo, that kind of thing. But you got to like, I want to do that more.
Yeah.
There you go.
I actually think I think this type of stuff is the way people overcome their demons and their really bad habits and the vices that have been hanging around for, like tens of years.
Definitely.
Because oftentimes bad habits are associated with shame. And so when you don't do the bad habit that day, you're like, well, I wasn't like now I'm normal, now I'm not doing that shameful thing. Now I'm not procrastinating. Now I'm not, shirking my responsibilities. And you don't celebrate that, even though for you, or whatever vice that is that you've overcome, it's a big accomplishment.
Yes.
And it should be celebrated. It's just we don't tend to frame it that way because we feel shame around the whole enterprise to begin with.
Yeah, that's so true. I can identify that directly with not smoking weed, like the first time I quit. And also when I was like young, when I was a young teenager, like I lost 200 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And I was 350 pounds and I dropped down to 150.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I did it like in a year and a half too.
Wow.
I was just like, fuck this. I'm going to like I wanted to lose my virginity. And I'm like,
yeah, so you're highly motivated.
I looked at myself and I'm like, it's not going to happen like this. And I'm like, I have to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I did, but I didn't celebrate at all. I'm like, yeah, this is how I should be.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
And people try to distance themselves from their past. They want to forget their roots if they're ashamed of them.
Exactly.
But I don't recommend that. Like I do that. I'll be like, I'll overcome something, and then I won't want to think of the old Daniel anymore.
Exactly.
Because you want to create distance.
Yeah.
But that's part of your story, and it's like, Goggins talks about the cookie jar.
Exactly.
All the difficult shit you've been through.
Yeah.
And that you've overcome, just you can use it. You can use that story and
as fuel.
So don't distance from your shameful vices.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I got to start celebrating. I remember Gary Vee even talks about that. He's like, I celebrate nothing.
Yeah, Gary Vee is very much representing one of the voices in this
boardroom that you have.
In this boardroom, yeah. Yeah, like and it's a good voice to have sometimes, but there's a term for this. It's called hustle porn. Right? you watch these videos, you get pumped up and you're like, oh, like I got to stop doing this, or I got to start my business or whatever it is, and it can get you going, but I think there should be more voices there. It should be more even-handed.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. Because like when I first stumbled onto Gary, I was like, I'd listen to only him for a while. That's how I am when I like find people. I study them. I like go really deep into their philosophy. So I only listen to his stuff. I listened to everything he did at least 2 or 3 times. And like I was really deep into his philosophy. But then I was like, I need to like offset this because like I'm just like all about that, I'm like, because like as I kept listening to only him, I started losing my creativity. Yeah, because I wasn't thinking about anything other than like business and how to like convert and make things and like just do the hustle thing.
And he's great for that. I think it's good to that Tim Ferriss phrase, to have a tribe of mentors.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you can
definitely
offset someone's intensity in one domain with compassion in another or something like that, and just have this holistic model of success.
Yeah, I don't know who that is right now, because right now I'm just all about Goggins and Peterson.
Yeah,
that's all I've been listening to.
Maybe that's the phase we're in, right? And that's
it's
going to serve its purpose.
Yeah, eventually, right? and Tom bill you. I mean, that is how we connected, right? Like in the Uber.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was amazing.
And also, I remember, so it was a very short Uber ride. It was one of those Uber rides that like you're kind of embarrassed about taking because you're like, I should walk. I don't know why. But I was like, nah, fuck it, I'll take this Uber. And I remember you were it was dark, and you turned the steering wheel, and there was like a little flash of light that just glinted on your hand, and I saw the reflection of that mushrooms tattoo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was like, this guy we're gonna get into an interesting conversation, and it's gonna be cut short, but let's go for it. And then obviously there was just a lot to connect with, and
really,
I realized that you were listening to Impact Theory, and so that was a synchronicity. That was an interesting encounter.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I don't know if I told you or I told my girlfriend, but right before,
I like how we both occupy a similar category in your mind.
Because I remember I told somebody, and it's like, if it's not the person that I'm like directly talking about, it's usually her.
Yeah.
But just before that, I was writing in my, like, I still have it. I kept writing behavioral scientist Toronto, psychology Toronto, because I was trying to find like all the places that like I like are that, so I can go and interview people. And like just like a day before I was writing that, I'm like, I have to figure out like behavior. I have to find a behavioral scientist, someone who's like in that field to like, interview. And like, and all of a sudden, like, we had that encounter, and I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah. Maybe there's truth to the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think so. I think there is. I have a lot of things that have happened like that. Synchronicities that just happen like that, like very oddly. A lot of stuff. Like I decided that I wanted to do a workshop on employment, like how to keep a job, because I was thinking of like things that I know, and I've had like 30 jobs, so I know how to get a job very easy. Like I know how to go through the interview process and like kill it every time. And I was like, maybe I should make like a workshop on that, or like how to like, because I'm like, I know like in survival jobs, it's not just about getting the job and having it, but like having something apart from that will keep you going.
Yeah.
Even if it's a job you don't want to do, if you have a different purpose, it'll kind of fuel you.
If you're moonlighting with something that's closer to home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was gonna make a workshop about that, and I didn't know anything about workshops. And then I was on Shaper, and randomly this guy swiped me, and we talked on the phone. And he's like, I don't know how to edit video. He's like, but if you can like cut up my stuff, he's like, I'll give you a workshop that I used to do. He's like, I'll just give it to you and I'll show you how to present it.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, that we'll do that kind of exchange. I'm like, okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very weird. I decided I wanted to do like very intimate stuff. I didn't want to do any more video gigs that were like structured on helping people like boost their web presence and stuff, unless it was in a field that I actually liked.
Right.
So like I like, if I find a bunch of companies like the one that you work with, like I would love to work with that company. But like I've been doing with like naturopaths and stuff, and I don't identify with that a lot.
Yeah.
So I decided to stop doing video gigs, and then somebody who I know already, one of my buddies, he called me up, and he's like, I want to do a video shoot with a federal MP, this liberal MP guy. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible. And he's like, no. It's a really, really, he's like, watch this documentary. It's this documentary called Human.
Okay.
And it has like a lot of deep conversations, and it's a very personal kind of thing where it's like a very close-up shot of the person and they're really exposing themselves. He's like, I want to do something like that. And I was like, wow, that's perfect. I'm like, I want to do. Oh shit,
I saw it go.
oh, battery, that's what it is. Wow, battery death, that's big. Doesn't happen often. Batteries die.
Well, you came prepared.
Always. Oh, that one's gonna die too. Might as well change it now. What was I talking about?
This documentary with the MP.
Yeah, so I saw that and I was like, man, I actually want to do that project. And then we started doing it, and I learned so much. And then I realized that it was the perfect segue for me to make my own documentaries. Like as we were sitting down and doing it, I was like, this is exactly how I want my documentaries to look.
Right.
And it was just like this weird attraction. Like I decided, like I wrote, I want to be a documentator up there. And then the next thing you know, that just kind of came into my life.
I think there is something powerful, and I think we can say this without invoking any spirituality or anything like that. I think there's something powerful about decisions. Once you decide to do something, once you get everyone in the boardroom on board, and you
get serious,
you commit to it. I think there's a quote. I think it was by Goethe, the guy who wrote Faust, where he said something like, I'm going to butcher it, but basically, once you decide, once you commit, then the universe moves with you. It's like all these things in your life start to conspire along the path of your decision. Yeah. And I think part of the reason for that is reality is, for all intents and purposes, infinitely complex. So there's so much that we're tuning out. We're always tuning it out.
Of course.
And so the thing that adjudicates what we see in the world is our goals and our decisions. So if you're able to change that, if you're able to change what's motivating you, what you're geared towards, then reality starts to change in its appearance, because all the stuff that you were tuning out before starts to become more salient.
Yeah, like that reticular activating system.
Yeah, exactly.
In your brain.
Exactly. And so you see opportunities that you would have never seen before. And a very simple example of this is if you walk down a street that's very familiar to you, but you walk when you're really hungry, you start to notice all these restaurants that you didn't know existed.
And smells.
Yeah, definitely. That's another huge one.
Yeah.
When I'm fasting, oh my God.
Yeah.
I can smell like a dog.
When I first tried to quit smoking cigarettes, I could smell cigarettes from like it felt like kilometers away. I'd be like, where is the cigarette even? Like, I'm nuts. And it'd just be someone driving by or something. It was crazy. Yeah. So strong. Yeah, that's actually true. I think Jordan Peterson talks about that when he talks about, I think he talks about sacrifices. Like when people would do sacrifices, when they'd sacrifice like a lamb or something. He's like, what do you think happens when you get serious? When you get really serious about something, you actually like do something to like solidify that and show that you're that serious. Everything changes. And it's very true. Like me buying this equipment, like it just made it so like this was a serious thing that I did. It's
signaling your commitment.
Yeah.
And that's what these sacrificial rituals served as, at the very least.
Yeah, exactly.
Some form of, it's also a social signal as well. You're signaling to everybody else around you, and then they're starting to adjust their behavior towards you and see you more in that way. Yeah. And next thing you know, you've just kind of shifted your reality.
Yeah. That is what it's like. Yeah. And you don't really have to invoke or bring in spirituality to it. I guess it's just something that kind of happens. I mean, that's what I did with this. I mean, I tattooed myself like that, and you know how many people have like opened up to me about like all sorts of stuff just because I have this tattoo on me, and like it just happens. It's weird, but I guess I got serious about it.
Exactly.
Like, I was like, I'm gonna have this on
committed
forever.
To it.
Yeah, that's true. I like the tangents we go on. This is good. Don't even remember where we were. Like, I'm gonna probably try and section this out into like habits and like behaviors and this and that, but it's gonna be hard.
Making it difficult for you, brother.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take like hour chunks and be like, this is it. Yeah. I don't even really want to do that. I really want to just start putting these conversations out as they are. I'd rather have, like, I know I'm not Joe Rogan or anything, but I'd rather have the conversations just in full. Yeah. Rather than, because people always say, I remember I talked to one guy, he was like, you should put it in like 8-minute chunks. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, no. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
One thing you could do, which I appreciate as a podcast listener or viewer, because this usually happens on YouTube, is you have like a table of contents with the different themes.
That's what I think I'll do more so than anything, because that's good. Like I appreciate that too. Like if I was watching that Mike Tyson interview Joe Rogan did, and they were like DMT here, I'd be like,
you just click straight to that.
Perfect. Yeah. Let's see where they talk about DMT. Yeah. Yeah, that is an idea. Basically just something like that. But I want it to be full. I don't want to cut it up. I don't want to cater to people having short attention spans.
Yes, that's a wonderful goal.
Yeah, right. Like I don't want to feed that.
Yeah.
Like, so I'd rather everything just be very long. Well, we'll see what happens. Again, you never know where things are gonna go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we asked that already. Oh man, I guess you kind of did answer this, but I'll ask it anyway. In your experience, what's the best way to form good habits?
Yeah. So I mentioned probably one of the key insights for me, which is getting very clear on the reward.
Yeah, exactly. Reward systems.
There's a couple other things. So one, it's actually, and this is a principle that I don't follow, and I fail as a result of it, but it's better to install especially difficult habits one at a time. And this obviously is case by case. There are periods of your life where maybe you can do more than that, but again, with humility, the most success I've seen is I'll take like 30 days to install a difficult habit. And that's my primary goal for that month. And I'll still do other things. Like I'm not going to, let go of everything else in my life. It's just the one habit that I'm definitely committed to that month is the one that I decided to, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then you break it down. So you say you have to be very specific about when you're going to do this thing. So if it's going to the gym, when are you going to go to the gym? Is it going to be at like 5:30 p.m.? Is it going to be at 7 a.m.? Like just get really specific. And that gives you some failure criteria as well, right?
Sure.
Now, if you go to the gym, but it's not the time that you intended to go, that's still better than not going that day.
Of course.
But if you go consistently at the same time, the probability of it becoming a habit, it goes up. It's a lot higher. Because the cues, the environment, the state of mind, like everything is being held constant. And so your mind is getting used to it.
Yeah.
Your brain is starting to internalize that this is something that we do at this time of day, and it starts to fit into your life.
True.
And then with that, it's really important to have a cue. So again, the example of flossing your teeth, most of us already have the habit of brushing our teeth. So it's good to attach the flossing habit to the pre-existing brushing habit. Yeah. And there's a term in behavioral science called an implementation intention, where it's basically you create an if-then statement.
Implementation
intention.
Cool.
And this is essentially a formula for goals and habits that has been shown in a number of studies to increase the likelihood that people perform on the behavior they set out to perform. Okay. So if you use implementation intentions, you're stacking the deck in your favor. And so what is it? It's an if-then statement. You say, it's if then or after then. So you'll say, after I brush my teeth, then I will floss one tooth. Okay. Right? After I leave the office, then I will walk to the gym.
So something that you already do.
Yeah.
It's already solidified, and then you add the thing.
Yeah. So you already have this structure, brushing your teeth, leaving the office. So that you use that as the cue for the routine, which is the habit that you want to install. And then to really hit it home, once you perform that habit, just reward yourself. So really simple things, like as soon as you get into the gym, go like, yes, I did it. I went to the gym. Yeah. You get like a little bit of dopamine for doing that. And then your brain's like, oh, we got to keep doing this. It's good for us. And you make it like a positive experience. Yeah. Another thing is, I think I was telling you this earlier, we tend to overcomplicate things, especially if you're thinking a lot about goals and mindsets and success. Yeah. We might get into the tendency of searching for the best way to do something. True. Of course. The best is the enemy of the good, or the good enough. Right? People say the good is the enemy of the best, but no, if we're fantasizing about the best, if we're fantasizing about perfect, we'll never get started. So for me, something that's been super helpful, because I will overthink things, is to, again, we were talking about trivializing things, but also just like doing it like poorly, but doing it. Yeah. So going to the gym and just have a shitty workout, but just go to the gym. Yeah. And that's still success. Like you did it. Yeah. And you can reward yourself and you can move on and understand that it's a long game. Over time, again, the good habits will generate.
True. Yeah, that is true. I mean, my first run, like I stopped like maybe 10 times
Yeah.
in like 2 miles. I was just like, fuck, this is crazy. And I just kept trying. Like, and that was it. I was like, okay, I made it, and I made it back. I'm like, okay, good. Like I did it.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't like ideal, you know? Like it's still not ideal. Like I still look at like charts of like how fast people run. I'm like way below. But it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Still doing it. So what is that? Implementation intention. I gotta start writing this stuff down. I gotta learn this stuff.
We have it recorded, so.
Yeah. But I want to actually look into this heavily.
There's another one which is worth looking into. It's called mental contrasting.
Mental contrasting.
Yeah, and this is basically like in self-help, you hear a lot of people talk about the importance of visualization.
Yeah.
This is visualization 2.0. This is I think they're positive psychologists. They studied whether or not visualizations actually work.
Okay.
And what type of visualizations work best. And it turns out that it's more effective to visualize the success if you do the thing that you set out to do, and visualize the failure if you don't do it, than if you just visualize the success.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And this is actually consistent with what Peterson says, because he talks about the importance of having a vision of heaven and a vision of hell as well. And what that does is it gives you, there's two motivation circuitries essentially, where you're using heaven to motivate your approach circuitry,
Yeah.
but you're using hell to motivate your avoidance circuitry. So you put something like terrifying behind you and something
fire.
motivating before you, and then you get after it, right?
Wow. I never thought of that in terms of visualization.
Yeah. Yeah. Visualize what would happen if you didn't do the thing you set out to do.
Oh, man.
It's not fun.
No, yeah. Even just thinking of that with the things that, okay. Wow. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah. Visualize what happened what would happen 5 years from now if you let all your bad habits consume you, take over your life. Extrapolate from the bad habits.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like doing it now.
Yeah.
Man, I find that, well, yeah, that is impactful. My first thought is like, that's so dangerous because I have such clear visualizations, but yeah, that would help a lot, because then that pushes you. You're like, okay, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Like if you can like visualize it clear enough that you can see it and feel it, then you're going to want to stay away from it. Definitely.
Yeah. I think there's a limit to this. And now this is not scientifically validated as far as I know, but this is my intuition.
Yeah.
That you want to be careful about visualizing the negative excessively.
Of course.
Because ultimately that which you attend to is what you will become. So if you're continually thinking about what could go wrong, that's not helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think there is an optimal balance. I don't think it's all about the power of positive thinking.
Yeah,
I think it's the power of realistic thinking, but perhaps a slight bias towards the positive.
Yeah.
Right. To just this hopefulness. So you have more of like a self-trust attitude as opposed to a fear attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe once a week I'll like go into hell, and, like see what hell's like, and then the rest of the week like think about heaven. Man, that's actually I'm actually going to do that one, because that has to be a really good tool.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just for like my box of failure, like I don't even like to like look at it. But like as soon as I had the 3 things out that I failed, and I talked about it on my vlog too, I was like, fuck. I'm like, I don't want any more of this.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like I had to open up about it to like anybody who's watching the vlog. So that was like hard. And I had to kind of like explain myself. Like, why'd I fail this? And I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to actually start doing that. That's powerful. That's really cool. What else? Oh, I like this one. What are some habits that you had to rid yourself of in the past?
First one that comes to mind when you say that is staying up late.
Me too.
I used to have terrible sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
And that was a really challenging first hurdle to overcome. It was one of the, it was one of the habits that that really set me up for success with everything else.
Really?
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier that I was dealing with insomnia. And so that was a time when I was wrestling with this a lot. And prior to that, I never really took my sleep that seriously.
True.
But that experience just showed me how important sleep is and how fundamental it is.
Wow.
And yeah, now I almost never, like, usually what would happen is that I'd come home and I'd just go on the computer aimlessly.
Yeah.
And then an hour and a half would go by and I'd be on some sort of, YouTube loop
rabbit hole
somewhere. Yeah. Some Wikipedia rabbit hole, or it's so realizing like the nature of that. And saying, okay, this is something I choose not to do, not exposing myself to the temptation.
Yeah.
Was very helpful. So yeah, that was a habit I overcame.
True.
With that, also sleeping in. Those two things go hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Staying up late's my thing. Like I can wake up at any time, but like I'll always stay up. Cause I'm somebody, like, if I sleep 4 hours, I feel great.
Interesting.
Like I feel much better if I sleep 4 hours than if I sleep 7. Like I feel fantastic. Like after 4 hours, I'm up. I'm like very alert, and I'm like just ready to go. But I know it's not good for me, so I don't do it.
Well, some people actually have a certain gene that calibrates them to 5 hours of sleep. I've heard about that.
Yeah, so have I. I just don't know if I'm one of those people.
Yeah, and you might not want to play that game.
Yeah, right. I don't want to just assume that I'm one of those people.
I mean, we can sequence your genome or something to find out.
That's what I would have to do, because like ever since I found out that like there's a thing that builds up in your brain and throughout the day, and then sleep excavates it. Yeah. I was like, okay, now I have to sleep more. As soon as I found out about that, I was like, I have to do that.
Yeah, sleep is a deterrent against dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because that same thing that builds up, it acts as a neurotoxin if you don't sleep and get it out.
Yeah, it's a time when your brain does maintenance and housekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish. I really want to find out if I'm one of those people, because like, oh man,
yeah,
I'd be so happy. 4 hours.
That's a gift.
I feel so good. I can't even describe it.
Wow.
Like I just up and alert and like ready to start the day, but like every time I do it now, I'm like, oh fuck, did I just fuck myself up?
Yeah.
Like what's happening inside that I'm not dealing with now? Oh, what are some of the most important habits to have in life?
I really think sleep, like having good sleep and waking up early, that whole complex of habits, that's fundamental.
True.
It bookends your day. It regulates your body. That should be at the top of everybody's list. If you haven't mastered your sleep, or if you're nowhere near it, that should be a top priority. Another really important habit is I don't know if this is for everyone. I'd like to think it is, but writing, journaling.
True.
I think journaling is insanely powerful because it allows you to confront your own thoughts.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance at catching yourself on your own bullshit. And it creates this practice for self-honesty.
True.
So I'd say a large part of the unnecessary suffering that we experience as humans is the product of self-deception. So if you can create habits to reduce self-deception, then you're golden. And journaling is a huge one for that, if you commit to speaking the truth into your journal.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like the meta habit, the habit of speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult, but
true. Hugely
important.
True. I got to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, sometimes you don't actually, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to tell the truth, but you choose to.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I am with people. Like I just try to tell the truth all the time, and it works out better, and it's easy because I'm not afraid of confrontation. So yeah, it's just telling the truth works out easier. You sleep better.
Yeah, you have to keep track of less things.
Yes. Yeah. I think I swear I just heard Jordan Peterson say that. He's like, you never have to think about what you said.
Yeah.
Like, and like, what's like better than that? He's like,
Yeah.
you just never have to think about what did I tell this person? What did I tell that person?
The thing is, though, it puts you in this state of perpetual insecurity.
Telling the truth?
Telling the truth.
In what way?
In the way that having a truthful conversation where you know that if somebody asks you a point blank question, you're going to tell the truth, puts you like it makes you a little bit vulnerable.
It does.
And I actually think that's a good thing, but it's not a pleasant experience if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And so making friends with that sense of insecurity is also very important. And life becomes more interesting. I think it actually brings you into the present.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah, I never thought of that. Because if somebody, I kind of think of that Jim Carrey movie. I think it's called Liar Liar.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden he has to tell the truth all the time. And he's like, shit. And like if somebody asks something, like he has to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do it, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess it is hard. Like I pride myself on being very open because like I just embrace the vulnerability. Like I notice that it has a lot of strength when you do it. You feel stronger after it's done. If you're very open and vulnerable with people, and then they're usually the same way. Once they pick up that it's like authentic, they'll be the same way, and then it triggers a really meaningful conversation, and yeah, just a deep connection right away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can get insecure, I guess, because you're sitting there like, oh, if they ask this, I'm gonna tell the truth.
Yeah, I think there's layers to it though. One thing I've realized is how often I unconsciously bullshit myself when I'll say statements that are true.
Yeah.
They're technically true, but they're framed in a way or they're timed in a way that I'm not so subtly signaling at a certain version of the story.
Okay.
So there's something about like your statements can all be propositionally true. So like, you know, you check everything you said and it's like, yep, that's true. It's all factual. But if your intention is to slightly deceive, but you're still saying those statements that are true,
yeah, then
you're not really doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can totally do this. You can totally lie with the truth. It's people do it all the time. I catch myself doing this all the time where I was like, well, you know, what I'm saying is true, but if I'm honest with myself, I realize my intention is for people to have a certain image of me in that moment.
Yes.
And so I'm like going to be honest right now. I feel like part of me is even saying this right now to convey a certain image of myself as someone who has, you know, a sense of humility about telling the truth, right? By making this concession, maybe even this concession is another, there's an infinite regress of, but that's the thing, right? Our intentions are often very opaque to us, and you realize afterwards, or you realize when you're lying in bed and you don't have anything stimulating your mind anymore, and these moments of profound honesty just kind of happen, self-honesty. So it's very, very tricky, and that's why I really like how Jordan Peterson says, don't think about it as telling the truth because you have no idea what that is. Just make sure you're not lying. And that's a really good place to start.
True.
Because sometimes if you just take that frame, you can immediately see the ways in which you're lying.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm trying to think of like any times where maybe I was doing that. I don't think so though. But maybe just, I don't know.
I think it helps to just anticipate that's a very human thing, not to kick yourself too much about it. And
it's like an integral dip. Like, you know, that dip's going to come.
Right. Yeah. Anticipate it.
Yeah.
But always try to make these corrections, you know?
True. That's actually, that brings me, actually, it stood out a lot when I'm just gonna jump right to it. is it? Do you still believe lucid dreaming is the most important skill anyone can cultivate for their personal development and well-being?
It's funny you asked me this because I recently doubled down on that.
Really?
Yeah. So I've been reading a lot about Carl Jung,
Okay.
and he uses dream analysis as a central avenue into understanding the psyche. And the whole goal, let's say, of the Jungian process is something called individuation, becoming a whole, complete person.
Okay.
You know, moving past as a man, becoming a man and moving past the boyish nature that you had when you were a child under your parents' covering, and integrating all the different aspects of who you are into one being, you know, the dark parts of yourself and the good parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And he keeps talking about the importance of dream analysis as a tool for achieving that. So if we put individuation, this Jungian, you know, journey,
Yeah.
as a priority, which I think you can make a good case that it is, then, and if you put dream analysis as the best tool in order to reach individuation, or one of the best tools, then lucid dreaming is reaching a level of mastery in not only dream analysis, but the dreams themselves, right? Because lucid dreaming presupposes that you're remembering the dreams.
Yeah.
And that's a huge hurdle that a lot of people have to overcome if they want to do any dream analysis. But when you're lucid, you can actually talk to the characters in your dreams, and it's talking to your psyche.
Yeah.
And you can ask them what you should do, and they'll give you answers.
Yeah.
Right? You'll be able to reach some of the deepest insights, like insights that might take years of psychotherapy to uncover. You might be able to do it in a night of great lucid dreaming.
Yeah, I was actually thinking after reading that, because for anybody who's listening or watching, I got that question because he has a video on Vimeo about that. It's intellectual integrity,
Yeah.
I believe it's called, where you say that, and then you were talking about like this whole back and forth you had with your friend Peter. But I was thinking of that last night, and I was like, it's like the physical, like if you can call a dream physical, but like you're in like a physical world, physical representation of like thinking things out. Like,
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it's like, because I've been lucid dreaming a lot the past like 2 months.
Okay.
Like a lot. And I got to the point now, I used to be able to lucid dream, and when I would run very slow, like this.
In the dream.
Yeah. And now when I run, I can run fast. Like I can actually like run faster than anybody who's like around, and like do whatever I want, kind of thing. It's weird. And I can fly now.
Right.
I can like do stuff like that. And I just started talking to the characters. Like just recently, I just started like actually trying to engage them.
Right.
Or they'll engage me, and then I'll be able to engage back. A couple times I've had to like read stuff, and like usually you can't read in dreams. Like you'll try and read stuff. The past 2 lucid dreams I had, I was able to read, and like I still knew that I was dreaming. It's very weird. Very, very the characters that I encounter are very odd.
Yeah.
And they're usually old. They're usually very old. And I'm usually pretty frantic. And it's almost like you go into this different realm, and whatever's there, whatever entities or whatever they are there, they're used to it.
Yeah.
And like you're not.
You're the one who's learning.
Yeah, and they're kind of, they were very much, they were like relax kind of thing, like, yeah, they were kind of like relax, and I was kind of like swiping at them, like, get out of here. It was really weird. They were these 2 old women, they're like, look at you, and I'm like, yeah, get out of here, get away from me. It was so weird, and I thought like they were trying to like do something to me.
You didn't trust them.
Yeah,
I
didn't trust anything that was in that realm.
I have dreams like that where I'll have a visceral sense of distrust for a character in the dream, but I won't be able to explain why.
You know, an energy healer,
Mm.
one of these people who's very much in the spirit world.
Yeah.
I told her about some stuff like that. She's like, you're encountering shapeshifters. And
What does that mean?
she's saying that like they are she's saying like they're evil-ish.
Okay.
They're like evil-ish kind of trickster entities,
Yeah.
and they're like in your dreams, and they're like trying to like trick you into something. She's like, you're experiencing shapeshifters. Because I had one, and it was like you're gonna die, you're gonna die. And it was my friend. It was my friend who I loved like a brother, my buddy Jason, little Jason. And I'm like, you're not Jason. And then it turned into a really old person. They were like, and they walked away. And I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. That's crazy.
It was really weird. And she's like, yeah, that's a shapeshifter. She's like, you got to watch out for those. I'm like, what? But, and it's hard because like when I say this person's an energy healer, it's so easy to dismiss them, but they're also somebody who came to me and they were like, they met me for the first time. I've never met them. They're like, you're going to be a leader and you're going to break off and start doing your own thing. And your life's going to completely change in like 3 to 4 months. She's like, and you're not going to be able to sit on these crutches that you've been on for like the past few years. And everything changed. Everything she said was true. And
Right.
It fucking tripped me out. I was like, maybe it's just like coincidence. I'm like, it was annoying. It was really annoying to have somebody be like that.
I think one way to reconcile some of these strange experiences that we might have with, say, more spiritual individuals who you can't gauge if they're brilliant or they're crackpots, you know, when I think it's like the way I reconcile this is I try to keep 2 sets of books. And in one set, which is the mode I normally operate from, I'm a skeptic. I think scientifically. I take a naturalistic account of world phenomena. And that's something that I feel I've developed a sufficient level of skill in. And so I am inoculated against other people's bullshit to a level that I am like confident in, right?
Sure.
So I'm not going to be duped. And it's very important to develop that ability.
True.
But if you do that too much, then you kind of lose some of the wonder in life, or you could.
Yeah.
Right. And you also you're not equipped to describe some of these events that seem profoundly spiritual to you. And when you try to explain them to other people, you will never be able to put it in the right words for people to empathize with how significant that event was. And so I found myself developing a second set of books where I assume that maybe we don't know the right words to use to describe some of these mystical phenomena, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So maybe we draw upon mythological terminology, or we'll say like shapeshifter or something like that. But it's an approximation. It's a model, right? It's something that can actually serve a useful purpose. And it might not be because of the energy and the crystals or whatever description this person might be giving, but that might serve as a close enough analogy that it actually is useful.
True.
And the thing that ties all of this together for me is that even our most scientific models are wrong. And so this idea, all models are wrong, but some models are useful. And
True.
there are some models, there's some realms, let's say, there's some realms of experience that a purely rational scientific perspective it's just insufficient to explain it. Or maybe it's insufficient right now with our current level of understanding. So we're forced to turn to more narrative or mythological or spiritual interpretations of events.
True.
But I think it's very important to have both sets of books at hand and to really be on guard and maintain our skepticism while we're playing with these other ideas.
Yeah, because even as you were saying that could have just been like my fear, like that entity, like whatever that was in the dream.
Yeah.
Like, it could have just been like intrinsic fear. Like it was a young person who's saying that I was going to die. And like maybe I was just like, at the time I was very afraid of death. It was
Right.
it was like before my DMT experience and before a touching psilocybin experience, which kind of released all that. Like I don't have a fear of that anymore.
Right.
But before I did, like a very deep fear of it, because I didn't want to pass before I did all the great things that I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
But now I just kind of release that fear of all that, because we don't even know what it is, and you shouldn't be afraid of something that you don't even understand fully, you know. Yeah, so 2 sets of books. It's it's very weird though. Lucid dreaming, man, that's actually nuts. I'm just gonna get right into the intellectual integrity, that video, because I watched it a bunch of times. Yeah, your questions are so much longer than anybody else's. I'm usually like 6-word questions. Okay, so yeah, so let's break down intellectual integrity. So do you remember the 2 tips that you gave to cultivate more of it?
Yeah. I think this is what I said, but either way, I think these are good 2 tips. So first of all, let's define intellectual integrity.
Yes.
This video and the example of lucid dreaming was, so it was about how I found myself in a position where I was making an argument on behalf of lucid dreaming, how it's a very important skill to develop.
Yeah.
And then my friend confronted me with the question of, do you really believe that? Are you actually practicing that? And I realized that no, I wasn't, and I had no plans on practicing it.
Yeah.
And it made me think, why did I make that argument? And I realized that a lot of the times, I and a lot of my peers and people in general, but myself in particular, will make arguments for the sake of intellectualizing. It's a game. It's nice to be able to marshal these different premises and lead to a conclusion.
Definitely.
To make a claim about something.
Yeah.
And then you look at your life, you look at your practices, and there's a gap there. And it's like, well, then what do I really believe? Why am I doing this stuff? So I thought one way to cultivate more integrity there, to make sure that my talk to walk ratio is tightened up, was that when I make these conclusions, to really pause and to think, okay, what does that mean for my life? For Daniel, what does that mean for Daniel? Right? Just go a little further. Don't just stop at the nice conclusion, because that's the perfect place to stop when you're having a discussion with someone.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, checkmate. That's a great conclusion. Now let's like move on to the next. No, like actually in that moment, slow down and think about what it means for my life this week. You know, just make it very real, very visceral. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, which has been very powerful for me, so I'm somebody who I'll continue to debate internally about things, and that starts to create doubt. You know, in things that I already know I should do, I'll start to create doubt for no reason.
Yeah.
So doubt becomes a place to hide. When you're not 100% sure that this is the right path of action, when you're 95% sure, and then you're kind of afraid of taking that path, or there's some resistance, the 5% can become this really seductive area of doubt, and you can hide there. You can say, well, I don't know if it's actually the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And the way that I try to overcome that, imperfectly, but I think it's really powerful, is I'll make provisional commitments. I'll say, well, I'm going to act as if this is 100% truth. This is God's gospel truth. I have no doubt. I'm going to act as if I have no doubt with this conclusion for the next 2 weeks. And I set it up for the 2 weeks, and I'll like write it down, and I'll put it in my calendar. And it's like, for the next 2 weeks, we'll act as if lucid dreaming is the most important skill to develop. And that's when you start to follow up your conclusions with action, and you'll learn, you'll test them.
Yeah. And
so it won't just be an intellectual game. You won't just be an armchair philosopher or someone who likes to debate. You'll be a practitioner, and that should be the goal.
True. Yeah. And that's where the integrity comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I guess a lot of people could benefit from doing that. I know a lot of people that just say things to win, or to like put that thing out there, or back to what you were saying, to like show themselves in this light of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I realize that a lot of what I say is 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 motivated by the interaction that I'm having, as opposed to what ostensibly the thing is aimed at. So that's a weird way of putting this, but I think when I said that lucid dreaming argument to my friend, I just wanted to bring an interesting intellectual point to the discussion.
Yeah.
But I wasn't actually thinking about lucid dreaming and what it means for my life.
True.
So again, knowing your motivations and cultivating that self-honesty, calling yourself out on your bullshit also helps with this.
Yeah.
Because then you'll realize just how terrible your talk to walk ratio is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big thing. I keep thinking of running because like, I do try to keep my talk to walk ratio very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully I do that through this whole running thing and trying to better myself constantly, because that's what I put out on social media. Is I'm constantly trying to better myself, constantly trying to inspire and motivate people. And I just want to talk the walk. I just want to walk the talk.
Yeah,
definitely. So that's why that's not why I'm doing the running thing, but like it definitely helps show people that like I'm not just saying it.
Exactly.
Like, I do stuff too.
Yeah.
Wow. That's actually really good. And that is exactly what you said. I had it written down to a T.
I remembered it.
Let's talk about behaviors. Oh shit. You know what? It's 7:00.
Oh wow.
Fuck.
That just slipped by.
What have we been at? Oh man, 2 minutes. 2 hours, 23 minutes. Jeez. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I guess we got to cut it.
Yeah.
Get to my next thing.
Sorry, man.
No, that's all right. It was kind of lost in flow there.
Yeah. Where do you have to be?
Downtown.
Yeah?
Around Yonge and Dundas.
Okay, I can take you like definitely really, really close there.
Oh, amazing.
That's no problem. Man, that was crazy. How much did I have left to even ask? Not even that much, I guess. We didn't go through the work stuff, which is fine because like I'd rather get to know you as a person than what you do at work.
No, I think you made the right call there.
Yeah.
And I imagine I'll be back in a few months.
Yeah, I'm definitely down.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I guess I'll ask you off camera. Oh yeah. So I only had like 6 more questions. That's cool. We're good. So sorry, guys. Oh shit! And your camera's turned off.
Oh,
Jesus, we're falling apart here. All right, guys. So sorry about that. It's been like 2 hours. We're 29 minutes late on when we were supposed to stop. So we're gonna wrap it up. You know what? Let's wrap it up with I want you to have the last word. Anybody listening who's like struggling with either their habits, their mindsets, or like just them as a person, what is some, maybe not advice, but maybe something that you have that you want to say? I don't know how to frame it because I know you said you don't like to give advice.
Yeah.
The personal Socrates thing, but what is something that someone can do or you could help in some way? I can't even say the sentence properly.
I would say that the first thing that's coming to mind is for people to never underestimate the significance of their integrity and their ability to get their lives in order.
Yeah.
It's not just about them. And this is something that I'm learning more and more. No man is an island, right? We live for each other.
Yeah.
And by taking that seriously, I think it can serve as a deeper form of motivation to get after and to overcome some of our difficulties. And so understand that everything you do, like if you choose to do what you believe is the right thing, it's not just you that has an impact on. That has an impact on the whole world, and you don't know the extent to which that's going to ripple out in a positive way. So don't underestimate the power of your own integrity.
Beautiful. All right, guys, that was the process. Peace.
Oh, thanks a lot, brother.
No problem. so sorry about the time. I should have put a timer.
Yeah, that's okay. I like the whole open-ended, just getting lost in the present. Right?
Yeah, right. Like that's what I'm trying to do more of. That's why it's easier to do. Well, there you have it. That was Daniel Kazandjian. Kazandjian. That name is tough, man. But that was a really great conversation, and I'm so grateful that he was willing to talk to me about it, talk to me for that long, and come out as far as he did and everything. So we got a little deep there, guys. A little deep. That's probably the deepest I've gone in a podcast. Like, me and Phil went deep emotionally, but Daniel and I went deep, like, philosophically, and it was pretty cool. But anything that lacked any deepness was completely because of me, because Daniel's a genius compared to I am. It's nuts. And he's younger than I am. He's like almost 10 years younger than I am. And he's just like so smart. It's so smart. It's nuts. And the stuff we talked about off camera, it's nuts. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. And Daniel, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry I missed your birthday party. I was very depressed, and I was wallowing in a whole circle, a whole sphere of marijuana smoke. My apologies. But I know you aged well without me. People always seem to age well on their own. But no, seriously, very sorry. Please come on the podcast again. And you guys, please come and listen to this podcast again. As always, like, share, subscribe, rate, review, and please check Daniel out. He is a personal Socrates. I have had this with him, like I've done this with him briefly, and it's really, really impactful. His Instagram is Dan Kazand. I can't believe somebody already had his name. Like, he could have got his full name, I think. I think he just didn't want to. But yeah, he's on Instagram. It is Dan, Kazand. That is his Instagram, Dan Kaz. And he is on YouTube as well. Personal Socrates. Crazy Wisdom. Is that his YouTube? Yo, this is new. This is new. Crazy Wisdom. He's doing something else now. Oh, this is cool because we haven't talked in a little bit. What? Okay, so if you go to his Instagram, he has a YouTube. He also has a website. I believe it's called personalsocrates.com. But I don't see it on his YouTube right now. So just check it out. See what you can find. But other than that, thank you guys so much. And again, no sponsors. I know they're coming. I know the sponsors are coming. I know. I can feel it. Can feel them. They're breathing on my neck. But for now, this episode is brought to you by My Curiosity. Peace.